unlimited possibilities forever. Change your destructive beliefs to break free from your past and live the life of your dreams. By Robert Szentes. Introduction. I have been a master hypnotherapist and master neurolinguistic programming (NLP) practitioner since 2010. I was introduced to this field after my corporate life came to a halt in my early 40s, when I began to experience painful seizures and my left arm and left leg became partially paralyzed after a small stroke. It was a very painful and intimidating experience as I became unable to move freely or even complete simple everyday tasks. My body was shaking, and I was crying. I became physically and mentally incapable of taking care of myself, and incapable of functioning in my electrical engineering career. My life as I knew it ended. Before I hit the bottom, I experienced pain for many years, both emotional and physical. To find a solution, I tried many things from yoga courses to psychotherapy and medications. They all helped for a short while, but I was not able to sustain a happy and healthy life despite the many avenues explored. I had temporary relief here and there, but the problems kept coming back, and it became very frustrating to live with a lack of progress, and I gradually lost hope. After my stroke, a friend recommended neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis, which I was unfamiliar with at that time. I had already lost everything I ever worked for. My marriage was over, and my house was foreclosed on, so why not give this a serious shot? I went to see a practitioner, and for the first time in my life, I experienced undeniable shifts and changes beyond my expectations. I began to learn that my problems stemmed from my subconscious mind, and my mind programs were creating the pain and the consequences I was suffering from. I also learned that NLP and hypnosis have the ability to address and eliminate the root cause of problems to create a lasting change. I became very curious about what was going on, and I wanted to understand more. I began to learn hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, and the workings of the subconscious mind. During my studies, I tried and applied the new learnings to myself, and I was able to miraculously rebuild my health and life one step at a time. As I got better, I realized that the people around me had very similar challenges. I offered my help to them, and they experienced the same undeniable positive changes. I learned more and helped more people. I went to seminars and workshops, and I studied more. I became a practitioner, later a master practitioner, then a trainer and teacher. As I continued to help more and more people, I found that the challenges they had were very similar in nature, even across cultural and geographical boundaries. I have coached hundreds of people from different parts of the world, from different socio-economic backgrounds, and the problems they shared were identical to one another. They were identical to the problems I once had. I was fascinated by what I found, and I continued my research on how different problems translated to different subconscious root causes. Such problems are commonly referred to as depression, anxiety, unfulfilling relationships, stress, PTSD, and fear of rejection, to mention a few. Through my interviews and coaching, I have also found that a big challenge for people is that they do not know that there are tools available to create a fulfilling life. Many of them are not even aware that living in perpetual pain is not normal. They don't know the tools and available options, so they become frustrated and lose hope. I was once in that boat as well. As I began to understand the subtle secrets of the subconscious mind, I became able to help even those folks who thought would never be able to have a happy life again, because they were dealing with very deep problems. That ability and the many transformations I was fortunate enough to facilitate and witness are what inspired me to write this book and share these subtle secrets. At the end of the book, I have included a couple of techniques to help eliminate the cause of the problems. If you apply the information presented in this book and the techniques correctly, you can start shifting closer and closer to a wonderful and wealthy life of your choice. Chapter 1: Our Mind and Our Beliefs. Limiting Belief Fundamentals. Despite years or even decades of hard work and effort, many people may find it difficult to reach their goals and desires in life. Goals and desires tend to be universal in nature, as almost every person is interested in finding a loving relationship, obtaining perfect health and happiness, becoming physically and emotionally well, and making more money while having time left to spend with family and friends. All these different ideas are possible to achieve for everyone, but what are the reasons they are not coming true for so many? There are several reasons, but the biggest culprit is because most people travel through life with heavy baggage, not realizing that much of it should be left behind. This baggage creates frustration, it slows them down from moving forward, and it gets in the way of progress. The baggage I am talking about is unresolved negative emotions and limiting beliefs that people carry subconsciously, sabotaging them daily outside of their awareness. These deeply hidden negative emotions and limiting beliefs are highly destructive to their emotional and physical well-being, and some of the beliefs they carry could even have the power to ruin their lives. The topic of this book is these deeply buried and dangerous limiting beliefs. Through years of researching the subconscious mind, attending workshops, and seminars, I have discovered that more and more people are becoming familiar with the concept of limiting beliefs as they learn the destructive power those beliefs can have. I notice that many people begin to learn different techniques on how to eliminate these negative beliefs, but most of them reach a limit to what they can find and work through by themselves. They reach that limit because they are not familiar with some very important information. I had the same challenge, and it took me years of searching, meeting different people, and learning from them before I was able to figure out a way that finally worked for me. I decided to write this book with the intention to bridge similar gaps for millions of people and bring them the answers, so they can start creating positive shifts toward a happier and more fulfilling life. I wrote this book to serve as a long-term tool to help gain exposure to some very important principles, and see how these principles fit your daily life and why they are important. Learn this information, and I also suggest that you take the time to reflect on the messages in each chapter. They will help you bring clarity to many of the questions you may have been asking all your life. I also recommend keeping a journal as you read through the different sections of the book. Write down revelations, intuitive messages your mind gives you, and also the limiting beliefs you identified. Make sure you also read this introductory chapter many times because it teaches the important fundamentals. It may be tempting to rush ahead to the advanced material and techniques right away, but if you have not learned the fundamentals, you will lack a solid foundation to build anything on top of. Always master the fundamentals first, even if they seem ridiculously simple. The more you learn, the more you will realize that the simple fundamentals are very deep, and the details of the fundamentals are the important things. The deeper your foundation goes, the higher you can build your success. If you already have experience with subconscious work in changing beliefs, you will find this book to be a great addition to what you already learned. If this is your first exposure to this topic, great, read it, and if something does not make sense at first, don't worry, keep reading. You can always come back and see it again. Next time, it will make more sense. Read this book however it works best for you. Read through all the way first to get a broad idea, and then come back again to understand the message in more detail. Read it out of order, if that applies better to your life. Whichever approach fits your personal needs. Before we begin, I would like to mention something very important. In order to enjoy a better life with improved results, some approaches and strategies must change. Unfortunately, change is surrounded by fear, which holds millions of lives hostage. While there are several excuses people use to avoid change, the truth remains simple. Change is inevitable, and if we get in that way of it, we will pay a big price. Most people think that by avoiding change they will find peace, but as you could suspect, that thought is driven by denial, indecision and fear. Peace comes from accomplishments and positive changes, which are the opposite of stagnation. It is true that change comes with some discomfort, but being stagnant will eventually create more pain. To avoid unnecessary pain, we must be willing to accept change and learn new things. These changes and learnings need to take place at a subconscious level. You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. Jim Rohn. Our mind. We may know about the mind-body connection, but I have found that most people, and even studies, focus mainly on our physical aspect. The physical part of us is very important. Exercise, diet, nutrition and good rest are much needed in order to feel good and have the energy and health to enjoy life. However, I have learned the great importance of our mind, which is often overlooked, creating lifelong challenges for many people, and keeping them stuck. What is our mindset? The concept of mindset is not well understood and sometimes even misperceived. Most people are only familiar with the terms open mind and closed mind, but these expressions indicate broad concepts that may not mean much to most people. Put simply, Our mindset is our attitude, the way we think about circumstances and people. The way we think influences how we feel, how we make decisions, and how we interact in different settings. All of these influence our results and level of success in life. Success is a function of the mind. A few people know it and, therefore, enjoy a great life, but most people must tweak their mindset if they want to achieve different and better results. Here are a couple examples. The first one is to demonstrate a negative mindset. Have you seen people who are constantly depressed or angry and have excuses for everything? What are they thinking and feeling nonstop to have such reactions to life? They probably don't even know what it is that makes them unhappy, but likely deep in their subconscious mind there are troubling memories, unresolved negative emotions and beliefs creating their misery. What about an example for a positive mindset? Have you seen someone with a can-do attitude? No matter what life presents to them, they take care of it and often succeed. Many leaders and entrepreneurs are good examples, who tend to view everything as a possibility and an opportunity. They also have the drive and the willingness to go for things even if there are setbacks along the way. It is likely that these people have done self-development work and learned to train their mind to be natural at success. What is your mind's diet? What are your continuous thoughts and feelings? What are your patterns and habits? This is important to discover and become aware of because whatever we think and feel, we actively perpetuate. What we feed our mind is what our life becomes. The problem is that more than 90% of what we think or feel is subconscious, and it is running all day and all night in the background without us being aware of it. Another interesting thing is how many people confuse the mind with the brain. They are not the same. The brain is a physical organ in our body while the mind is a non-physical part of us, our thoughts, experiences, and perceptions. The definition goes much deeper, but that is a good enough description for now. If you are familiar with computers, the brain would be the central processing unit, CPU, and the mind would be the operating system. The brain takes the mind's commands and translates them to the physical plane, creating behaviors, responses, and emotions in the physical body. Our bodies are machines. We do what our mind tells us to whether we are aware of it or not. Our bodies, our behaviors, even our language are subconscious, driven by our mind without us knowing what we do, what we say and how we react to things. Here are a couple of examples to show you that how we experience the world around us is a result of our mind's programs outside of our daily awareness. Can you remember a time when you met someone who made you smile and gave you warm feelings and reminded you of good old times? Hopefully, you can. Are you choosing to be happy and choosing to feel good consciously? Do you really influence how you feel about certain people? No, it happens whether you want it or not. It happens subconsciously. This is like when you meet some folks, and you feel angry or triggered by them, because they said or did something. Are you choosing to be angry and triggered consciously? The answer again is no. All of that is happening subconsciously, based on how your mind programs interpret the outside world and what meaning your mind attaches to people and circumstances. If you don't like how you feel or react to others, there are ways and techniques to change that. First, you need to become aware of what is happening and what you are doing. Once you become consciously aware of these things, you can change them around as needed, but not until then. I will give you many examples throughout the book about the little things we say and do and what they mean from the mind's perspective. How our mind works. Our mind records everything that has ever happened to us. It is recording our life like a satellite TV recorder. The difference is that our mind never runs out of space. There is no limit to how much it can record. It has an infinitely large storage, and it does not care what it records. It does not get emotionally involved. Just like the satellite box does not care if it records a cooking show or a war movie. We are the ones who experience emotions, and our mind pays attention to those emotions. If we like something and feel good in the event, the mind files it in the happy category. If we experience something unpleasant, our mind takes note of it and puts it in the needs work category. Here is an unknown secret. Our mind wants us to feel good at all times, so it suppresses negative events and emotions as long as it can. As we move through life, later our mind pulls old events from the needs work category and presents them to us for resolution. Most people run from these inside messages and have no idea that these are happening for specific reasons. Our mind has a very deep understanding of our true potential and journey, and when we deviate from that path, and we neglect to learn the necessary lessons, It will send us signals to direct us and guide us to best understand things we could call our subconscious mind or imagination. Our imagination brings us many images, pictures, expressions and self-talk throughout the day. Our subconscious mind speaks to us through these pictures, images and expressions, but these do not always convey what most of us think. They symbolically carry messages, which messages are the important things we need to recognize. The messages from our mind are similar to children's stories. Often they seem vague or simplistic, but there are deeper meanings and lessons behind them. Our mind is not interested in the story itself, it only cares about the moral of the story and the lessons we are supposed to learn. Most people only pay attention to the story and do not realize that they are spending time and energy on the wrong thing. To give you an example, if your mind, imagination, showed you a wolf, what would you think it represented? Some people might say aggression, others might say fear or hunger. You will have your own interpretation and association with it. Your mind brings you these images because it knows what you need to see and learn from it. It might show you the wolf because it is telling you to eat, since you are hungry like a wolf. It might show you the wolf because you are a lone wolf, and that lifestyle may not fit you. These messages vary based on the individual. The same image and message can represent something different for the next person. The messages from our mind are never expressed negatively, and they are not meant to be mean or hurtful. They are always presented with love and the desire for us to improve, learn, and have a good life. The lack of awareness is what causes humans to ignore these messages and continue to be in emotional pain. Once they understand this and learn the lessons behind the metaphors, the old pain is released, and it is not presented anymore. Here is an example of how people miss the positive learning by focusing on the wrong thing. You can see and hear this everywhere. I asked several people after they experienced something unpleasant, what they learned and took away from that event. Unfortunately, almost every single one of them said something negative. I learned that I cannot trust people, or I learned that other people are mean. These learnings are not positive. They do not come from a place of empowerment, a place of higher truth and understanding. In every story, there is another angle. It is entirely possible that the other side's perception was incorrect. Even then, we shouldn't take things personally. We need to be more compassionate and accepting, as other people have their own views and struggles. To add to the positive learning, we also need to observe our own reactions and learn to pay attention to what is happening. Other people and interactions give us reactions and messages daily, but most of us don't know what to make of them. I will talk more about why others trigger us, why we interpret triggers negatively, and how we can change it in Chapter 5. If we do not learn positive lessons, our mind will continue presenting issues of a similar nature to us until we learn. Our mind's messages will become louder and louder, and the inside pictures, as well as the outside events, will be bigger and more uncomfortable. The messages will also come with more intense negative emotions. The longer we wait to resolve things, the worse things get over time and the more intense the pain can become. That is why our own personal history tends to repeat itself. We don't pay attention to these internal messages and won't learn the positive lessons soon enough. Our mind will present these messages to us over and again with ever-increasing intensity until we get it and take care of them. Some call such repeat events patterns, negative habits, loops, or gestalts. I would like to re-emphasize that the unpleasant reminders don't happen because our mind is punishing us. They happen because our mind is requesting us to learn, grow, evolve and work through our problems. Once we learn empowering lessons and teach our mind, it will move the old junk to the happy category, and the unpleasant reminders will be gone. The old problems will not be brought to our attention anymore, and we will be free from old pains. In order to escape some uncomfortable reminders from the mind, some people might tell you to forget the past and move on. This may work for minor things, but in most cases, trying to forget the past is the wrong approach. I was taught the same thing and it almost killed me. I tried to forget the past, but the past did not want to forget me. I did not understand that my past held important information in it, which I never learned. Because of these unlearned lessons, my mind kept sending me reminders in the form of intense pain. I learned the hard way that I should not aim to forget the past, but rather understand it, learn from it and resolve the negative emotions and events. Once I did that, my past left me alone and my mind gave me my peace back. Have you heard the saying, Time heals everything. Most people believe that means to wait, so the problem would go away. If you have lived long enough, you know that ignoring problems does not make them go away, it just makes them worse. This misunderstanding causes most people to put things off and only pay attention when it is too late and when the pain is already unbearable. There is one exception to this, which is grief after a loss. It is a process which a person needs to go through, and it can take some time. Time heals as a tool and as a technique, but not as an excuse to wait and put things off. Time only heals when we understand why things happened, and we work through the challenges and eliminate them. This requires awareness, willingness to take responsibility for our lives, and the willingness to accept change. Our beliefs, what the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve, said Napoleon Hill in his famous book, Think and Grow Rich. I have learned to appreciate this statement, and I have learned this to be true. For most of my life, I did not know the meaning of belief. I did not realize that they are not always communicated in our everyday language. I knew very little about beliefs, and I also found that most people do not have the vocabulary developed to identify and describe beliefs either. We say things like, I think, I feel, the fact is, my opinion is, or this is how I see it, without realizing that we are describing our views, our perceptions, and ultimately our beliefs. Fortunately, that is changing. More and more people are becoming aware of their own thought patterns and beliefs and how those thoughts and beliefs influence their lives. Esther Hicks says, belief is a habit of thought. We repeat the thought, we repeat our actions and our behaviors. The results have no other choice but to repeat as well. Our beliefs affect what and how we see, hear, and experience things. They influence the decisions we make, the emotions we experience, and the way we act and respond to life's events. Our beliefs will either allow us to observe things as they are, or distort the experience and give us false meanings and interpretations of events and circumstances. Our beliefs are also influenced by what we understand and know about a particular subject or topic. When our understanding of a subject is high, it can increase our level of belief about it. You might be familiar with Dr. Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief book or video on YouTube. He scientifically proves that our perceptions create responses in our body and neurology, influencing our health positively or negatively. Certain negative thoughts and perceptions can bring serious illnesses and diseases to the physical body. Conversely, different positive thoughts and perceptions can create healing and well-being. When we change negative perceptions, which translate to negative beliefs, we can become healthy and happy as if nothing happened before. In other words, our perceptions, our beliefs are capable of keeping us in misery, or they could create an amazing life even if it seemed impossible before. This phenomenon happens subconsciously, in the back of our mind. While most of our beliefs serve us, there are many of them that are getting in the way of our happiness and well-being. The beliefs that bring negative results and sabotage to our lives can be changed once we become aware of them. People often say that they'll believe something when they see it. There is an inherent problem with that statement. By saying this, they already doubted and disbelieved that idea. They created a block to the possibility of achieving it, even if this was exactly what they wanted. Those of you who are familiar with the law of attraction probably know that what we truly believe and want in life we can manifest in our physical reality. What we doubt will not come to us, or if it gets close, we might filter it out and reject the possibility of it. It is vital to know of the many subtle and quiet beliefs we have, as they can make or break the level of success and happiness in our lives. How we filter experiences, the quality of our life, depends on what we focus on. What we focus on is determined by what we deem important. If food becomes important because we are hungry, we will focus on finding food, and we will not rest till we eat. If sleep is important to us, we will focus on finding a safe place to sleep. These are simple everyday examples, which describe some fundamental physical needs. However, our focus goes thousands of times deeper, mainly influenced by our hidden subconscious beliefs. In each of the following chapters, I will describe different beliefs making us focus on things completely outside of our awareness and bringing us results that may not be beneficial to us at all. For example, in Chapter 7, I will explain limiting beliefs about safety and danger. There are many people who believe that they are not safe, and life is full of danger, even if the circumstances are completely friendly and inviting. They focus on how to plan an escape route, defense tactics, safety and self-preservation at any cost, even if it makes no logical sense. While they focus on safety, they do not focus on making friends and having a good time, even if those were possibilities. In Chapter 8, I will talk about false beliefs regarding love. One common and very dangerous belief is when people say, "Love hurts." People who have that belief might avoid falling in love and getting too involved in a relationship. They will focus on staying on the safe side, and when the relationship could progress to the next level, they might find excuses to not continue. Their focus is to stay away from being hurt, to avoid disappointment and staying away from a loving relationship since they believe love hurts. These thoughts and responses do not happen out of choice. The behaviors and actions people exhibit are prompted by their emotions and beliefs stored in their subconscious mind. Once people realize that negative results and emotions do not have to be a part of life, they can learn how to eliminate the different causes and create more pleasant experiences for themselves. Here's an exercise to show you how our focus filters things in and out without us being aware of what we are doing. This exercise is fun, and it might be best done when facilitated by someone else, so you can focus on the exercise itself. Pick an environment that is colorful and focus only on one color, such as yellow. Take a mental note of everything that is yellow. Focus on it and do this for about 10-15 seconds, and then close your eyes. With your eyes closed, list all the things that were light blue. You can pick the colors of your choice. You may be able to say one or two things, but most of the time you will remember nothing of the other color, because it was not important. You did not focus on it, so you did not see it. Another example, on your way to work, how many gray cars did you count? How many clouds did you see? You probably don't remember. Why? Because you weren't focusing on those. You may have been focusing on driving, work, or even thinking about what to have for dinner. The gray cars and the clouds were not important to you, so you did not see them. We do this day after day, to millions of things in our lives. This is true for picking romantic partners, what food we eat, what we wear, and how we remember events and people. We can only observe and remember the outside world by what our emotions and beliefs permit us to see and how we filtered information in or out. Most of this happens outside of our conscious awareness. That is why so many people do not see what is in front of them, or what they see is often misinterpreted. They are also unable to see the potential and the possibilities. They either filter those things out by not even focusing on them, or when they see them, they believe those opportunities are impossible. What is a limiting belief? Believe it or not, life is designed to be happy and abundant. Life will give us anything that we are willing and able to believe and pursue. Life is not that way for many people because they have limiting beliefs in place, which limit them from seeing and achieving more. If you don't believe that, there is your first limiting belief. Whatever we believe about life, beneficial or not, will be presented to us by the subconscious mind. The subconscious does not differentiate between empowering or disempowering beliefs. These are called limiting beliefs, because they limit us from enjoying a better and more abundant life. The subconscious mind considers all beliefs true, and it will show us evidence in our lives to prove that all of those beliefs are present and alive. Beliefs are much more than just simple words or statements. They are deeply rooted in our lives and embedded in our neurology. We may not realize this, but our beliefs write the script to our lives. If we don't have the results we desire, we need to look at our thought patterns and beliefs to see what is getting in the way of our goals. A well-known example for a limiting belief is the story of the elephant chained to a small wooden stake in the ground. The moment the elephant feels the chain tightening between his leg and a wooden stake, he stops moving and stays where he is. Why is this? When he was a child, he was tethered to a concrete pole, and he learned that he could not move beyond a certain point. Once he accepted this reality, he stopped fighting. Today, he could easily pull the wooden stake out of the ground and walk away, but he was conditioned to believe he could only go so far. Now that conditioning and belief is his limitation and his reality. Similarly, a circus flea only jumps as high as the top of the jar, because when they were trained there was a hard lid on the jar, and they hit their heads if they jumped too high. They learned to jump only up to a certain height to avoid pain, and now they are conditioned to jump slightly below where the lid used to be. Are we humans any different? No. We move through life based on what we consider true, what we believe and what we don't. Whatever limitations we learned in the past, we also engraved in our mind that anything above those limits is impossible. As you probably already suspect, Many beliefs we have are incorrect, but they can only be changed once we become aware of them. Most people have hundreds, if not thousands of limiting beliefs sabotaging them on a daily basis and getting in the way of their success, completely outside of their conscious awareness. These hidden limiting beliefs are my specialty, and I worked with hundreds of clients to identify and remove very deep sabotaging beliefs they did not even know they were running. I will share my years of therapy experience, including my own healing and over 4 years of research, to give you a few examples of what limiting beliefs may sound like. I am not good enough, I am not worthy of a good life, women are only after money, money is hard to come by, I am not worthy of love, love hurts. There are many possibilities for limiting beliefs. Some limiting beliefs directly influence our fight or flight response. They can force us into perpetual survival mode, creating the deepest fears imaginable to us. Other limiting beliefs impact how we interact socially. Some cause us to act out of character, shy, or even violent. Some limiting beliefs sabotage romantic relationships. Others have the power to take away good health, and some limiting beliefs can even make people stay broke. You may have also noticed that when you ask for advice from friends or family members, they often try to talk you out of something that you believed you could do. If you have the belief and the drive to pursue your dreams and desires and it makes you tingle inside, you may have found something very precious. Make sure you do not let others' fears and limitations adversely influence your path. Those are their limitations and limiting beliefs and not yours. How a limiting belief is born. This part is important because once you understand this, you will be able to understand your experiences more clearly and take your life in the direction you want it to go. Our beliefs only exist because we made the decision at some point in the past to perceive things a certain way. The deciding event happened either to us, or to our parents, in childhood, and in most cases outside of our conscious awareness. There are 2 significant periods in any child's life. The first period is from age 0-7, which is called the imprint stage. The other important period is from 7-14, which is called the modeling stage. We end up with most of our limiting beliefs by the age of 7, but we can still create different ones in our adolescent and teenage years and even after. When we are very young, we depend on the ones around us to take care of us, to feed us, love us, and keep us safe. During this period, we are very receptive to information from our surroundings, and like a dry sponge we soak up anything that comes our way, because almost every day brings us something new to learn, learning to eat, to crawl, and then learning to walk, learning to ride a bike, going to kindergarten. We regularly stretch our mind as we continuously absorb new information and input. Throughout the day, we continuously evaluate what is happening around us. Even without well-formed words, we subconsciously make many decisions, which reflect what we experienced and how we perceived things. These decisions are simply stated, and they can sound like, Mom loves me, Dad loves me, life is good, food is good, I am safe. There can be several variations. The child makes these decisions subconsciously, without anyone knowing about it. Even the child does not consciously know that he made those decisions. Each decision the child made becomes locked in his subconscious mind, and from then on his mind will honor the decisions as long-term beliefs. These beliefs will also become active scripts to the child's life. As you can see, these subconscious decisions were made in a fraction of a second. They were a quick assessment of the moment, and they were decided based on how the child perceived the experiences. The decisions I listed above are positive and beneficial, and they will create a good life for the child. The problems start when a child experiences or encounters something that he does not understand and perceives as unloving, non-nurturing, or unsafe. Here is one simple example of how that can happen. Imagine a 2-year-old child sitting in a high chair with food on the tray, eating with his hands. He is doing a great job and Mom and Dad compliment him and smile. The child gets excited and becomes more animated, and the next fistful moves with more momentum. He misses, and some of the food ends up on the floor. The parents might have a sudden, extreme reaction such as "Oh no, don't do that." They might even yell. If a child perceives that exclamation as unpleasant or something concerning, he can make a quick decision to match that experience and that perception. For this example, he could decide, he cannot have fun, or he could decide, Mom and Dad don't love him. There are many different possibilities. He can also simply discard the event, continue laughing and being happy. his life can go on without any adverse consequences if that's the case. Again, the perception of the child determines what meaning he ascribes to the event. What he perceived influences the decision and what he begins to believe from then on, subconsciously. We all have made thousands and thousands of decisions like that growing up. Some benefit us and others do not. Another example is a child whose parents get divorced at an early age. Most children can end up with many limiting beliefs such that the parents don't love them, they do not deserve to be loved, or that the divorce was their fault. This is especially common for younger kids who do not understand the dynamics. At that young age, it is only natural to be confused by complicated human interactions. There are plenty of strange things and confusing experiences for the child beyond his scope of understanding. Because the child felt confused and lacked the full understanding of the situation, the decisions he made were based on a few moments of distorted perceptions. Unfortunately, his decisions became long-term beliefs and less than ideal scripts to his life without him being aware of it. Most limiting beliefs are stated with childish innocence and simplicity. Unfortunately, over time we learn to use complex expressions of logic to overpower and discredit the important messages that reveal problems. This logic is the enemy of change and the real cause of emotional pain. How do we know we have limiting beliefs? Sometimes, these negative beliefs can be difficult to identify because they are stored deep in the subconscious part of our mind. We can identify them through the language we use, our negative self-talk, and some new questions we can ask ourselves. It is also possible that our parents decided some of our limiting beliefs, and we ended up with them without knowing it. We can tell by becoming aware of our thoughts, and seeing if our patterns, feeling and behaviors are similar in nature to of our parents. The following is an exact quote from Esther and Jerry Hicks' book The Law of Attraction. Jerry asked Abraham in the section of, "What about the innocent little child, Jerry?" The child is not thinking in words. That is, I can sense that a child is having thoughts long before he or she is speaking words. Abraham, the child is thinking, and receiving vibrational thought from you on the day that he enters your environment. That is the reason why beliefs are transmitted so easily from parent to child, from parent to child, from parent to child. The child is vibrationally receiving your fears and your beliefs, even without your spoken word. If you want to do that which is of greatest value for your child, give thoughts only to that which you want, and your child will receive only wanted thoughts. Limiting beliefs can also come across as if they were just a joke and someone was playing an annoying game with us. First we pushed against them in frustration, but after a while we accepted the beliefs in resignation as part of our new life and reality. We started to live life with these beliefs in place and observed them coming true over and again. Because they have been coming true over and again with evidence to prove it, we learned to defend our own destructive beliefs should anyone or any circumstance challenge them. But it's true. Take a look. We might explain and rationalize our negative reality to others with passion and deep conviction. By being defensive, we continue to remain blind to our own problems. The defense, of course, is prompted subconsciously, and it happens because our mind is trying to protect our limiting belief. Our mind will send us subtle pain signals to stop challenging it and defend it instead because it considers all beliefs true. This defense and behavior is also referred to as cognitive dissonance. After we defend our negative beliefs, we continue to do the same things over and over again, without realizing that we are sabotaging ourselves. In order for the sabotage to stop, we need to become aware that we are possibly protecting false perceptions subconsciously. Once we have the awareness, we can use the techniques to change our beliefs and change our circumstances. To find our own limiting beliefs, we can ask our subconscious mind, not the logical and reasoning mind. I will discuss this topic more in depth later, but for now ask yourself these two honest questions. When you experience something you dislike, 1. What does this say about the outside world, other people? 2. What does this say about you? Write down the answers you get for each question. Dare to express honestly, even if it sounds strange or like whining. Don't allow your own conditioning to interfere with being honest with yourself. This is your chance to decode your own self-talk and thoughts. The answers you get for the first question will express some feelings and beliefs about the world, and the second will express some feelings and beliefs directly about you. You might get something like, the world is unfair, life is hard, or people are selfish. The answers to your second question might be, I am not liked, or I am not good enough. Remember these answers. Throughout the book, I explain what these statements mean and how they present problems. We have a going joke with my hypnosis trainer friends anytime we utter statements that are limiting beliefs. We say jokingly, "The world is unfair." When did you decide that? As you know by now, a false perception of one moment can easily become a chain of a lifetime. Each belief is the results of a decision, and anything in life can be redecided and changed. Discovering a limiting belief is only the first step in the process. You also must teach your mind why it was there and what you can do better in the future to avoid it. I give good examples in Chapter 9 of Learnings. Avoid negated language or the learning will be incomplete and even false, so your mind will continue presenting the issue to you till it is resolved correctly. I will talk more about the negated language in Chapter 5. Since these beliefs were recorded by the subconscious mind in trance, a preferred way to access them is also in trance, through hypnotherapy. In a deep trance, our logical mind stops interfering with the original events. This way, we can talk to the subconscious mind and address the root cause of the problem. I will share some client sessions and demonstrate how they eliminated limiting beliefs. Sometimes, we don't realize how much weight we have been carrying around until we finally allow ourselves to lay down our burdens. As we begin to remove our limiting beliefs and reshape our thoughts, we will also start rewriting our own life script to be more and more aligned with the direction we want to go. Chapter 2: Why we block out the good, not feeling deserving and worthy. I would like to show you how to find some of the hidden blocks your mind holds and how to bring them to the surface, so that you can become familiar with them. From now on, I will talk about specific negative thought patterns and limiting beliefs, what they do and how they show up in life. This chapter is about the first important building block of self-worth and self-esteem, explained in terms and expressions that may not be familiar to everyone. The terms are simple, but we don't use them in our daily lives in this form, but our subconscious mind does. Our mind speaks a unique language. Throughout my coaching career and years of participating in events, I have met many people who were talented and had everything it took to be successful and happy, but somehow they managed to self-sabotage and turn down offers and opportunities. Some of these seemed like an once-in-a-lifetime chance. I saw this everywhere. This affected relationships, careers, and even health. People aimed way below their levels of desire, because they were running specific negative beliefs. I have personally witnessed people destroy their dreams in front of my eyes when, after searching and waiting for years for their ideal romantic partner, they finally met him or her. There was mutual attraction, great chemistry, everything they ever looked for and more, but that did not seem to matter. After their dream has arrived, they said, "I don't feel like I deserve you," and they started acting foolishly, made the dream partner feel bad, and pushed them away. Such acts and interactions do not occur out of conscious choice, even though we might want to know logically what happened and why they did what they did. As I mentioned before, our everyday logic cannot measure up to our subconscious mind's logic. Our subconscious mind wins at the end of the day, no matter how much we push against it. Our subconscious mind's logic is superior to any other logic. The first set of destructive beliefs most people struggle with are beliefs surrounding deserving and being worthy of good results. While these words may not exactly be familiar to some, I have found them to be universally present. In the beginning, before the subtlety of this negative belief is fully understood, some people might say that they have no problem with it at all. That could be true, but someone they know is guaranteed to have it. As you could read some of the stories I shared above, it is happening more often than we realize. See if you feel comfortable about the compensation you receive or the way people treat you and the way life is going for you. If you are comfortable, you are probably doing well. If something could use some improvement, I suggest you reflect on the different aspects of your life, your career, your relationship and your health and see why you don't have the results you want. If even one area is not ideal, explore what is getting in the way. Later in this chapter, I will share some good questions to ask to see if your mind is running similar limiting beliefs. I will also share my personal story and how I ended up running such a belief and what it did to my life. When we have limiting beliefs such as we are undeserving or not worthy of something, our mind will make us behave so that we push opportunities away, even if we wanted those results. Limiting beliefs about not deserving get in the way of a natural flow and balance, since deserving means receiving compensation for the work and service done. Limiting beliefs about not being worthy directly expresses the compromised self-worth of the individual. Such beliefs are typically accompanied by other limiting beliefs such as I am not good enough or similar expressions. I will talk about the secrets to a good self-esteem in Chapter 5 and give more in-depth detail on the topic. One day I worked with a middle-aged man who was not feeling well but refused to go to the doctor. We had a deep and honest talk, and I asked some questions, so we could find out what was stopping him from getting the help he needed. After a few minutes of talking he blurted out this sentence: I am not going to the doctor, because I don't feel I deserve to be happy. Of course, once he said it, he was surprised, but I told him that this is how it works, and that's how our mind speaks to us. I worked with another client who had a rough childhood with abusive parents. Nothing was working out for him, so he came to see me. He did not feel safe to enter a relationship. His job situation was less than ideal and overall, he was unhappy with his life. We talked, and he was very familiar with the concept of limiting beliefs, and he flat out said, I guess I don't deserve a good life. These statements come from a very deep place, and should never be discredited. They are gifts of the subconscious mind, which are not always presented readily. We need to learn to capture them, write them down and resolve them if they create problems for us. During my initial client interviews, I found that almost every one of them had these limiting beliefs. When I explained to them that they can have a life that is happy and fulfilling, many of them were intimidated, because it sounded too good to be true. Is it really too good to be true, or are they feeling undeserving and unworthy of this new and happy life? I think you know the answer. Have you heard people shouting out questions like, what have I done to deserve this? What are they really saying? I hope you noticed when they shouted out their limiting belief they also expressed the negative emotions, anger, disappointment, hurt, carried by the belief. Unfortunately, millions of people worldwide use their language without any awareness that those words and expressions carry these deeper messages. Their words continuously hand them the key to their own prison cell, but they subconsciously filter it out and leave it behind. We need to slow down our thoughts and our speech and listen to what is being said. We can discover the patterns, beliefs and blocks that define our reality. The following is how I acquired a quiet limiting belief of being undeserving. When I was 14 years old, I was a strong competitive swimmer. I was at summer camp with my teachers and classmates, camping by a lake and hiking in the forest. One day, I had just come out of the lake when I heard a family close to me panicking and pointing at the water. A girl, a little younger than me, was drowning. Immediately, I swam like mad to rescue the girl. I got there right on time. Even though I was not trained in that type of rescue, I managed to swim us both to shore, which was harder than I thought. I did not know that a panicking body was so difficult to manage in addition to my own. Once we reached the shore, she ran to her family. Everybody was crying and screaming in relief and joy. While all this was happening, I stood there feeling very strange. I never saved a life before, and it felt very empowering. I was quiet and proud. The family was so wrapped up in their extreme emotions that nobody paid any attention to me. Nobody came to thank me, so after a few minutes I walked away. At the time, I felt fine about it. I did not realize until 30 years later that in that moment I made a couple limiting decisions. People don't recognize my contributions, and I don't deserve to be recognized for my efforts. Making those decisions resulted in many negative circumstances from then on, completely outside of my conscious awareness. All my life I worked very hard and gave 110%, but when it came for recognition, it just wasn't there. Why? In part, because my mind had no other choice but to present circumstances to me to prove my beliefs were true, and also because when someone complimented me, I deleted the words and perceived them as insincere. I used to say, yeah, right. Whatever. Does that sound familiar? How many people around you use the same response? Very likely they are running the same negative beliefs. Such responses happen subconsciously on autopilot because the limiting beliefs related to deserving and worthiness are blocking the reception of the compliments and rewards. People with similar experiences typically get wrapped up in the story, and could get upset about how selfish and insensitive the family was. It's okay to vent and get it off the chest, but venting does not eliminate the limiting beliefs or resolve the real problem. As I suggested before, the story does not matter for the mind, the learning and the lessons do. I did a regression on myself, where I met the younger Robert observing the family screaming in joy. I told the young teenager that he should be proud. What he did was rare and courageous, and it deserves to be acknowledged and rewarded. I also taught him that often people are slow to recover to logic and reason, especially when there is a life or death situation. That family was very grateful, but they were still in their initial phase of processing the event. I also realized in the regression that I could have gone up to them and asked how she was doing and make sure they knew that I was the one who saved their girl's life. I also realized that the act of walking away without getting the compliments or the rewards was a pattern of mine I did all my life. That realization was a huge gift, which taught me to change my approach and speak my truth and claim the rewards my contributions deserve. As a result, I was able to release the negative emotions and the limiting beliefs from that event. I forgave the family and wished them well, and I also forgave myself. Another common example how the undeserving limiting belief can sabotage lives is when lottery winners end up worse off financially a few years after they won the money. Winning money did not change their beliefs or emotions about being wealthy and the additional responsibilities it comes with. They did not eliminate their fears and negative beliefs about money or learn money management principles. The money they won did not match their self-esteem. Their mind made them give away the money, spend it senselessly, mismanage it, and end up broke in the end. Many of these people may believe that they are not deserving or not worthy of having money, or they don't deserve to be wealthy. Sounds harsh, maybe cruel, but that's how it works. I have lost everything and made thousands of mistakes similar to these because I did not know these basic principles. If you recognize these patterns in your life, or someone else's, you can see how critical it is to change them. Often, when people say, "I don't deserve to be happy" or "I am not worthy of something," they expose some high-level limiting belief, which probably have additional hidden negative beliefs behind them. You can discover your limiting beliefs by asking yourself why you feel undeserving and or unworthy. These are two separate limiting beliefs, so you may find that you have variations from each. Complete the sentence, "I am not deserving because," wait for an answer. Ask multiple times, purge the mind till it runs out of answers. Write down each answer. Each answer will be likely a negative belief. These answers are like bubbles. They come to the surface and pop. They may not show again for a long time, so learn to capture them. Here are some examples. I am worthless. I don't matter. I am not important. I don't deserve a good life. I deserve a bad life. I don't deserve to be happy. I deserve to be unhappy. I am not worthy of love. I am not worthy of success. I am not worthy of money. I am worthy of happiness. One client said this, "Because I don't deserve to be stood up for, no one else will stand up for me, and I can't stand up for myself, because I am not worth it." This statement had both deserving and worthiness issues in it. There are many possible answers. These beliefs may sound simple, but they run very deep in our neurology and can be very damaging. If you had to do the mind's job for a day and you had to honor these beliefs, wouldn't you go crazy? How could you give a person money when they don't feel worthy of it? How could you give them the necessary love when they believe love hurts? How would you allow a person to be happy when they believe they don't deserve to be happy? I hope you see how serious this is and how it is everywhere. Even though it may not have been obvious at first, you can go beyond the examples I shared above and see what else your mind is holding on to. Do this simple exercise. Write down this statement, "I deserve to be happy," then, wait for the subconscious answers and write them down. Sometimes you will get affirmative feedback from your mind such as "yes I do." Other times, you may have doubts like, "My mom doesn't think so," or "my boss doesn't think so." Those are some of your quiet limiting beliefs, probably completely unknown to you. Another good way to find out if this limiting belief is part of your patterns is to see if you have feelings of guilt about receiving compliments or help. It's all about listening to our mind and finally understanding that these beliefs do not benefit us. Once we realize this, we can rid ourselves of the beliefs that hold us back. In Chapter 9, there are a couple techniques to eliminate these limiting beliefs. How much we feel we deserve and feel we are worth in our core is going to determine the upper limit of our success. Special note, according to my research, the limiting belief, "I don't matter," is very serious. This belief can suggest deep issues, and it can also greatly contribute to feelings of suicide. I will talk more about that in Chapter 4. We must learn to help those who deserve it, not just those who need it. Life responds to deserve, not need. Jim Rohn. Chapter 3. There is not enough. The scarcity mindset. When something that we desire is lacking, whether it is money, food, love, or clothing, we can create a very quiet limiting belief that there is not enough of what we need or want. This is what we refer to as the scarcity mindset. Most people associate time and money with the scarcity mindset, but there are thousands and thousands of other ways of being stuck in that negative cycle without realizing it. People with a scarcity mindset tend to see the world in terms of the glass is half empty. The challenge with the scarcity mindset is that it shifts our focus from what there is to what is not, filtering out abundant options and putting our focus on what is lacking instead. This is happening whether we want it or not, as our mind blocks our vision only to see what is missing. Because of this belief, people can overlook great money-making opportunities. They might not notice a perfect romantic partner. They could engage in non-stop complaining and could also create high-stress situations in their lives. Most people may not realize they have a form of the scarcity mindset, because the way they talk about life might not be expressed exactly how the mind words it. Let me share with you some of the examples I have come across and what I have found people say to indicate that they are running scarcity-focused beliefs. Others have wealth. Why can't I have it? Others have a good life. Why can't I? Where are the good girls? Someone else took the job. Now I won't find one. All the good men are gone. I got divorced, and I'll never find someone again. There are thousands more possibilities. I have only mentioned a few to show how common negative beliefs can be phrased. All of these statements indicate that the mind is not able to acknowledge the abundant nature of the world around us. The only reason this happens is because limiting beliefs block the possibility of seeing and experiencing abundance. This does not happen out of choice. It is silently executed by our subconscious mind in the background, even while we sleep. The scarcity mindset doesn't only happen with jobs or dating opportunities. In the following story, the focus is on the lack of food. These stories are common, and I personally know many people who have this challenge. A client had a difficult time losing weight. After a thorough interview, we discovered that the cause was, there was not enough food when he was a child. He grew up eating scraps, and his family rarely had a good meal. Even as he grew older, he ate as if every good meal might be his last. His mind was running in perpetual scarcity mode and held onto the way to self-preserve. We regressed back to his childhood, where he was able to meet the root cause and teach his mind that the old situation and the old perception no longer served a purpose, and it was okay to let go of the fear of not having enough food. After that, his eating habits changed, as did his weight, for the better. You may have also observed people who are jealous of others who have more money than they do. This happens at every level and all the time. They feel angry and jealous about other people having money, yet they want to have more money. Have you thought about how the mind processes that? In this case, their mind has associated pain, anger, and jealousy with money. Because their mind's job is to keep them away from pain, it will keep painful associations away from them, including money. Their mind could sabotage them because their emotions and beliefs about money are incongruent with them and with their desires. In their mind, there is not enough money available. This is a scarcity-oriented limiting belief. However, once the mind runs that belief, it becomes true for them with evidence to prove it. They become frustrated with the evidence, so they steer their attention to other people's achievements. That gets in the way of seeing their own ability to rise to the same level and make things happen for themselves. Their vision is blocked and distorted by the limiting belief. When I worked with clients with this limiting belief, they honestly told me that they did not learn principles or tools to create success in their own lives. They were expecting others to magically hand it to them. I also found that most of them had limiting beliefs about not being deserving of money. There were additional self-esteem blocks accompanying this type of jealousy and anger, which I will share in Chapter 5. I personally never had this particular limiting belief, but many people from my previous social circles did. After years of my own personal development and investing over $250,000 of my own money and effort into learning and growing, I got to know some very successful and wealthy people. Some of them are my mentors, and they all shared their own personal journey with me. I have not heard one success story that did not involve years of hard work, investment, dedication, and commitment. These people worked very hard to get to where they are today, and they use their wealth and knowledge to teach success strategies to help others build a better life. Some said it took them 20 years before they were able to achieve that level of wealth. I asked a few of them why so many people view money this way. They said, because it takes self-development, time and effort to reach a comfortable financial level. That will not come without sacrifices and changing spending habits. In almost all cases, it will come with delayed gratification too, which most people are not willing to live with. I learned that we all have the ability. The question is, what is important to us and what are we focusing on? Income seldom exceeds personal development. Jim Rohn. Most people don't realize that they complain perpetually. They are not only stuck in the victim mode, but they are also subconsciously focusing on the lack, which is the scarcity mindset. A complaint is the opposite of a solution. They are focusing on what is lacking, instead of what is available. They cannot see the opportunities and solutions around them because their mind is concentrating on what is missing. While most people complain and only pay attention to what is missing, someone else will take others' missed opportunities. Often, I hear these people referred to as selfish, where they only did what others refused to do. Their focus was opportunity and possibility instead of scarcity. This is a direct quote from Abraham's teachings. Feel appreciation for those who provide examples of well-being. How would you know that prosperity was possible if there wasn't some evidence of prosperity around you? It's all part of this contrast that helps you to sharpen your desire. In this next section, I will show you how to break such patterns and start eliminating your scarcity mindset and the associated limiting beliefs. You can ask yourself, have I ever thought or felt that there was not enough of something that negatively influences my life today? You may have multiple answers and also different contexts. Have I ever felt jealous of someone's success? I bet about 90% of the people would say yes to that. What was the purpose of that jealousy? What does it say about you when others have something you do not? You might also explore Chapter 5 for some hidden self-esteem secrets. Always trust your intuitive answers and listen to what your mind presents you. Write down all the answers you get. Pay attention to your own language and learn to capture your thoughts. Some answers might come across as negative, but that is okay. Even if that's the case, don't let that discourage you. We are looking for the thoughts containing your doubts and limiting beliefs. Most people are afraid of these internal messages because they don't know what to make of them. Now you understand. When you have the list of limiting beliefs, you can use the techniques in Chapter 9 to resolve them. As I repeatedly emphasize, make sure you teach your mind the positive lessons. After you're done with that step, train your mind to focus on your goals, your capabilities and possibilities. Invest in yourself and learn the tools for success. Reshape your thoughts and emotions with new positive perspectives. Learn to focus on what is there, rather than what is lacking. Learn success strategies, attend workshops, take seminars. If you are interested in hiring a coach, make sure he or she did the work and has the results you are looking for. Next, I will share a client story to show another common example of the scarcity mindset, but rarely thought about. I have seen this happen quite often in the framework of a family. A young man came to see me and told me that his brother was getting a lot more attention from his mother than he was. This was a pattern throughout his life, and it made him feel very sad, frustrated, and jealous. He told me that he always felt resentment toward his brother without understanding why. After some discussion, we discovered that he formed a belief when his younger brother was born that mother's love was limited and there was not enough of that for both siblings. After we had found his block, he told me this. It's almost too simplistic and silly, but that's how I felt back then and that's how I feel now. I said to him, the subconscious mind speaks to us in the most honest and simplest ways, but for various reasons we learn to overcomplicate, over-explain things, and bury the real answers under false logic. He accepted that, smiled, and we began our session. We regressed him back to childhood, back to the time when he decided that there was not enough love for both brothers. As he revisited that old event, he realized that his mom was overwhelmed with a newborn, and there was no other adult to help her. His mom was also cooking in the kitchen, and she had to stir the pot and take care of the food. She took the newborn in her arm and left the older brother in the room. The older brother is my client. In this regression session, my client discovered that because his mom was by herself without help, she actually trusted him to stay there for a short period. She thought he would understand the situation and be okay without Mom for a few minutes. Because my client was young and did not understand the details, he based his limiting decisions on false perceptions such there was not enough love for both of them. Once he understood what happened, he was able to calm down and forgive his mom and himself. Once we finished the regression session, he was surprised at the simplicity of the story and why he put so much emotional emphasis in it. He also shared how this belief made it impossible to acknowledge the many kind things his mother did for him. He realized that his mom thought he was mature and independent enough to be by himself for a short time and that he would understand that she did those things out of necessity and love. He was able to move from a hurt and betrayed child to an appreciative adult who understands the meaning of responsibility and gratitude. What he revealed during the session were his positive learnings, which allowed his negative emotions and limiting beliefs to be released. Today this gentleman is free from jealousy and his relationship with his family is amazing. It's as if the old hurt and resentment never existed. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was Lewis B. Smedes. Chapter 4 I am alone. The fear of being alone. In my experience, most people don't realize that the statement, I am alone, is a limiting belief. This negative belief has the potential to be a very big problem. According to my research, this belief is one of 3 main belief groups that contribute to suicide attempts. So, when I hear people say, I am alone or I feel alone, I take that seriously. This topic is complex and goes much deeper than what meets the eye. There are several contributing factors to this limiting belief, and it comes with a lot of baggage. In my observation, the statement I am alone is accompanied with a myriad of negative emotions. Sadness, resignation, hurt and fear are very common. It also comes with a group of other limiting beliefs that hide in the background silently. Most people do not know about those other destructive beliefs. So, if you hear someone say I am alone or I feel alone, offer compassion and support, with the knowledge that it's not enough. They have to resolve their negative emotions and limiting beliefs at the subconscious level. It is also important to know that the subconscious mind is not only talking about being alone in the physical sense, since there are people who feel this way in the middle of a crowd or in their relationships. The subconscious is talking about being alone emotionally and being isolated from something greater than what those words can express. I am isolated is also another serious limiting belief that needs to be resolved. This belief goes deep and I would highly recommend seeking professional help with it. I interviewed people who told me about their feelings and thoughts of being alone. I asked them to describe what that meant to them in very simple and honest terms. I have gathered some very interesting answers. Some people described it as if I am not needed or not wanted. I have heard people describe their situation as I don't feel like part of a group or I don't feel accepted by a certain group or even individuals. Some people said, I don't feel that I belong. Some said they feel alone because nobody understands them. For some people, being alone translates into feeling unsafe and they need to be with others to feel protected and nourished. There are many different emotions and beliefs contributing to the belief I am alone, and I will share more of these later in this chapter. I heard many stories from people who suffered from the urge of committing suicide, and they described their situation as not being enough and not being good enough in different contexts. This is part of it, but there is much more. Here is the hidden secret. The main cause of any emotional problem a human can experience is the absence of love. This is hardly ever mentioned by anyone because it is too far outside of conscious awareness. Without exception, every single one of us is universally programmed to share love on many different levels and fulfill our mission. That mission is our purpose, our higher calling, which is always about helping other people. When the limiting belief I am alone and its hidden servants show up in our lives, they get in the way of both love and mission. Without love and our mission, we have very little to strive for or be guided by. Life as we know it loses its meaning and stops making sense. In my years of work and research, I have found that the 3 negative beliefs of I don't matter, not feeling loved, and feeling alone are the beliefs that push humans to suicidal thoughts and actions. I call these the toxic trio. I have helped many clients who were suicidal. My success rate has been an astonishing 100%. Suicide is a very big problem worldwide, and it also creates bigger problems than what meets the untrained eye. We need to understand that our mind is presenting these issues and circumstances to us to learn from and to change them so that we can step into a higher place of service and contribution. The fear of being alone. I have spoken with many people who told me they had a fear of being alone. To fight that fear, they started seeking the company of others for various reasons. Some of these reasons you could read about in the previous paragraphs, such as to feel safe, to be accepted, to have a sense of belonging, and to feel loved. As you can see, the motivations for all these actions are negative, because limiting beliefs and fears drives them. When the mind operates out of fear, it can make people choose friends and circumstances that are not always ideal for them. The mind is coming from a place of scarcity instead of logic and choice. It is recommended to figure out this fear sooner rather than later. If you or someone is experiencing this, seek professional help as needed. You also have this book as a resource to help change your life. If you have a friend or family member who needs help with this, give them a copy of this book and guide them out of their problems with the tools and options you have learned about. One person caring about another represents life's greatest value. Jim Rohn. I heard solutions offered for people who felt alone to partake in activities and joining different groups. This is a good idea, and I would also suggest seeking out people, groups and environments that allow them to grow, learn and move forward. To change things, let me share one approach how you can start identifying and overcoming the limiting belief of being alone and its team members, and also how to overcome the fear of being alone, if that applies to you. Dare to express your feelings honestly and don't filter your answers. Learn to welcome them and work with them instead of against them. Later, they might be more difficult to find and identify. If you feel alone or you believe you are alone, explore the deeper thoughts behind it. You can ask a few honest and simple questions that help bring up the deeper truth if you feel that you are alone or if know someone who is struggling with it. I recommend writing down the answers on a piece of paper. 1. Why do you feel alone? Describe your situation in writing. 2. How is that a problem for you? This may sound strange, but don't worry about it. Just open up and let your subconscious mind answer. 3. What would you need to have for this problem to go away? Let your intuitive answers come to you. Do not use your daily logic. Capture your thoughts and answers. I have already shared the most common answers I gathered, and I will list them again below. You may have something similar to what I listed or may find something new and different. If you feel you have challenges with love, read chapter 8 first and then apply the technique to change that. Here is a list of answers I commonly found. I am alone because I feel I am worthless, I feel I am unneeded, I deserve to be alone, I am not good enough, I am not enough, nobody understands me, I deserve to be punished, I am not noticed, nobody loves me, nobody cares about me, I feel I am unwanted, I don't fit in, I don't belong, I don't feel like I am part of any group, I don't feel like I'm part of something greater, a disconnect from mission and higher purpose. Typically such beliefs come from childhood or they can be passed down to us from our parents. These beliefs can originate in seemingly innocent circumstances. For example, when some of my clients were dropped off at kindergarten or school, they panicked, cried, and decided they are alone or they are unwanted. You can revisit chapter 1 and see how such quick decisions are made subconsciously based on our perceptions of the moment. If your answers were, nobody loves me or cares about me, you can take an extra step and ask, who specifically does not love you or care about you? In the majority of the cases for my clients it was a family member, most often mom or dad. Their final answer was, my mom/dad did not care about me or didn't love me. Once you have a list of the limiting beliefs, you can use the techniques from chapter 9 or a technique of your choice. Being alone and the many different thoughts it consists of are very complex, so here are a couple additional questions you can also ask yourself. 1. Do you like who you are? 2. Do you love yourself? If the answers were no, or you hesitated a little, it could indicate that there are some more topics you should explore. There are exercises and techniques to help with self-love. Make sure you read chapter 5 about self-esteem and read chapter 8 about love. If you found that you had the fear of being alone, use either technique from chapter 9 to release it. Read this material a few times till it makes sense. Start shifting your mindset by identifying and eliminating your limiting beliefs. After that, learn to create the prosperous and happy life you want for yourself. Chapter 5 Secrets to Lasting Self-Esteem. I reference this chapter throughout the book because it ties many concepts together. The topic here is the most common negative beliefs I found that adversely influenced my clients' self-esteem. The most frequent problems I've heard were related to dating, fear of acting on attraction, fear of rejection, and not being good enough. Other clients had deeper and more complex challenges. Their cases involved depression, trauma, PTSD, and abuse. In all of these instances, my clients universally asked for help to improve their self-worth and self-esteem. Through my years of coaching and training, I've met thousands of people who put a lot of emphasis and effort into their self-development. They went to different workshops and seminars to learn important principles and techniques. Some people hired coaches to help them focus on their individual goals and desires. They have all learned, made progress, and enjoyed the benefits of their investments. However, I have also met people who gravitated towards learning tricks and shortcuts to get fast results. Fast results are not necessarily lasting results. I know many people who have learned these different tricks and techniques. However, after some time, they became disillusioned, because they were not getting what they originally wanted. They did not learn the concepts behind the techniques, so they did not know how and why things worked. Without understanding the important concepts, their tricks and shortcuts created inauthentic behaviors and only the illusion of a higher self-image. Lasting results, in my experience, require a deeper and more profound transformation. My approach is to teach the important concepts and build a strong foundation without shortcuts and compromises. That will create congruence and long-term benefits. In my coaching and interviewing, I've spoken to many people who thought that an attractive physical body was what self-esteem and confidence were about, and some even said, it is easy for beautiful people. While an attractive physical appearance can be considered a gift, it is no substitution for a healthy self-esteem. That healthy self-esteem makes a difference in the long run. In certain circles, it is called our inner game. Before we begin, let me briefly explain the difference between self-esteem and self-confidence. Self-esteem is how we feel about who we are and how valuable and worthy we consider ourselves. Self-confidence is slightly different, as it shows how certain we are about our skills and our abilities as we move through the world. Self-esteem is how we feel about ourselves and self-confidence is how we act and execute our plan. These two tend to show up together. A healthy self-esteem is already inside us, but it is buried under many false concepts, doubts and limiting beliefs. These concepts and limiting beliefs are the topic of this entire book. Self-esteem influenced from an early age. In Chapter 1, I mentioned the importance of addressing and resolving negative emotions to stop undesired patterns in our lives. Some examples for undesired patterns are when we attract the same type of partners and unable to find a meaningful and loving relationship. Some of the patterns may be perpetual trust issues and feeling disrespected by other people. Some other examples could be work and health-related problems, staying broke and having unhealthy spending habits and even struggling with addictions. Many of these challenges are typically rooted in childhood and often led back to unresolved issues and unlearned lessons. In Chapter 1, under How Limiting Belief is Born, I described how we made decisions as children based on how we perceived the world around us. The following short section explains how this can affect self-esteem. Some things may not directly apply to you, however, it will apply to many of your clients, customers, and possibly your own family members and friends. When you know this information, you will be able to relate to people better. When we were young, we socialized and met other children. Through these experiences, we started comparing ourselves to them, seeing if we could walk, run, ride a bike, or do other activities as well as they could. This showed us how we measured up, what our strengths and weaknesses were, and what we liked or disliked. We non-stop learned from each other and also taught each other. Some experiences were positive, and some could have been negative. The way we processed and interpreted experiences depended on various factors, mainly our home environment and how we grew up. If we came from a supportive environment and felt loved, nurtured, treated with fairness, and secure about our life, we processed events with the appropriate amount of understanding. We could continue building a healthy self-esteem even if others did better than us. However, most of us grew up with a lot of stress at home. We could have experienced different forms of abuse, verbal, physical and even sexual, and our perceptions and our self-esteem were negatively influenced. In most cases, these stressful and abusive situations occurred at a young age, 0-7. After such events, our beliefs about safety, love, acceptance, and our sense of belonging eroded and changed how valuable we saw ourselves from then on. Many people struggle with these negative beliefs throughout their lives without recognizing what causes their unnecessary suffering. After working with people for years and witnessing the damage these ugly patterns caused, I've realized that something needs to change. I decided to write this book, offering my knowledge and expertise to help people overcome challenges who bear the consequences of such negative events. I also wish to reach young people before they become parents, so they can clean up their emotional baggage, and create a good life without unnecessary stress and abusive behaviors. As much as we like to think that we are making progress in the 21st century, we still treat each other as if we lived in the Middle Ages. In millions of households, coping mechanisms for stress are very poor. The strangest comments and remarks can leave adults' lips attempting to manage their own stress. They do not realize how their feelings, words, behaviors, and actions adversely influence their children's lives. Many clients told me that they grew up with derogatory and hurtful comments such as "Hey dummy" or "Are you dumb?" from parents, family members, and other kids at home or the playground. If their mind internalized the message and decided, "I am dumb," it would influence their scripts and become a part of their life experience. This could show up in the classroom through lower grades. In romantic relationships, it manifests by not being able to relate or communicate. It can even affect how they adapt to social situations. Some other comments clients grew up with were, "Why can't you be smart like the others?" as their disappointed family members may have asked them. If their mind decided, "I am not smart like others," or it generalized, "I am not smart," their life would reflect this belief in different circumstances. I have found this limiting belief to be very common. Sometimes it gets ugly when an irritated person asks the child, "Are you stupid?" If the mind internalizes "I am stupid," it can create lifelong patterns and negatively influence different areas of his or her life. People who say these hurtful statements might be stressed, or they might think it's cute or fun to tease. Unfortunately, being on the receiving end is a totally different story. Depending on the perception of the child, he could discard negative information and move on, but that is unlikely. Often, he will internalize the message and begin to believe it. Once internalized, his life is changed for the worse. Many clients have relayed a particular experience from high school. In this scenario, they were walking down the hallway when they overheard derogatory conversations other high school kids were having. These students were ridiculing those teenagers who were still virgins. Several clients told me that as they walked by, heard the negative comment, and began to believe they were losers because, at the time, they were not sexually active. This event blocked their courage to become sexual, and they experienced very little success in the romantic arena. My clients called it non-stop rejection. For some of these clients, the person they were interested in left with someone else in front of their eyes, which was very hurtful and very painful. They did not know that it was happening because certain negative beliefs were filtering their experiences, including the one from high school, "I am a loser," in the context of sex and sexual activity. It's important to note, compared to what some people deal with, these examples are mild. A lot of verbal, physical and even sexual abuse takes place in families and schools. Abuse is one of the worst memories a child can have. In my experience, a stunning number of people have experienced abuse and abusive events. Unfortunately, very few of these people realize that most of their emotional and relationship challenges, including ongoing health issues, are likely related to their unresolved abuse. Interestingly, all my clients had experienced trauma and abuse which, when resolved, completely changed their lives and liberated them. There are very safe and advanced subconscious tools available to heal these past issues permanently and have life back under control. Our negated language and what it does, the language we use, the way we communicate to others and the way we express ourselves is very important. Did you know, in most cases our mind does not process negation? For example, when we say, "Don't do that," the mind creates a picture of doing it. Many parents tell their young children, "Don't jump in the puddle," and, of course, the kid jumps in the puddle. You might have heard about the concept of positive language. It states what we want, instead of what we don't. Many people find this challenging because they have been programmed to speak mainly in negative expressions. "I don't want you to get hurt," "I am not saying that you are wrong," but, "Don't jump," "Don't run," Don't forget your wallet. Don't be late. I don't want to be like my parents. Don't give up. You shouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that if I were you. These expressions state the opposite of what we want, and they often come from a place of fear and intimidation. The language shapes our focus. Learning to use fewer negative and more positive expressions will let the mind focus on what we want instead of what we are trying to avoid. This becomes extremely important when using the techniques and learning the necessary positive lessons. When we do the lessons and the learnings in negated language, our mind might only understand what we don't want, and it might continue granting us more of that. Here is a short story demonstrating the power of our language. I was speaking with a young lady who told me she had difficulty finding a good man, as she put it. I asked her, "What are you looking for in a man?" She said, "I am not looking for a man who smokes, I am not looking for a man who is fat, and I am not looking for a man who is abusive." I instantly realized that her negative language was describing her reality. I knew that she was meeting men who were smokers, fat and abusive. I asked her that, and she said yes, those were the kind of men she was attracting. So I asked again, "What are you looking for in a man?" Without hesitating or thinking, she gave me the same answer, "I am not looking for a man who smokes, I am not looking for a man who is fat, and I am not looking for a man who is abusive." I smiled and continued playing and asked the same question 2 more times. She gave me the identical answers. I took notes, and I showed her what she had been saying. She could hardly believe it. She did not realize how she paid no attention to her speech and language, and she was focusing on the wrong things. Once this lady became aware of what she wanted, she began to focus on it. 3 weeks later, she met a wonderful guy and ended up marrying him. That is why I said in Chapter 1, even our speech is subconscious till we become aware of what we say and how we say things. It is very common to hear expressions that convey a confusing message, even if they come from a good place. Often, they come from parents, teachers, and friends. When a parent says, "Don't disappoint me," the mind could create a picture of being a disappointment in the child's head. If things don't go well, the child might decide, out of fear, "I am a disappointment." In another instance, parents might say, "Don't fail in school." Here, the mind can create a picture of failing in school, and again, if things are not ideal, the child could decide, "I am a failure in the context of school." All of it depends on the perception of the child. To help our children get positive results, we should learn to say what we want. "I know you can make me proud. You can do this. Let me know if you need help. I love you." We have to mean it, of course. This creates a totally different picture, which can help the child avoid creating the damaging beliefs about being a disappointment and a failure. Most words don't just come and go. They can shape our perceptions and beliefs, which then write the script to life. Some people only know tough love. It may work for some adults, typically for the ones that grew up with it. There are specific reasons why it works, but based on my clients' feedback, especially when a child is young, tough love can be destructive. Kindness is the language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. Mark Twain. Fear of failure. At some point in the past, we were exposed to the concept of failure. We may have heard it on television or from our family. We may have even overheard a conversation on the street or at the store. There are many possibilities. Based on how we perceived an event, we could have internalized messages and feelings, applied them to ourselves, and formed beliefs. Today we might say, "If I can't make my parents happy, I am a failure. If I don't complete tasks by a certain time, I am a failure. If I am not successful, I am a failure." These are common limiting beliefs, but they exist outside of people's conscious awareness. They did not even know they were running these beliefs until a more in-depth interview. What is failure? We use this word everywhere. When some people fail an exam, they can simply realize that they did not study hard enough, so they go back to the drawing board and do it better next time. But for someone whose father told him you are a failure when he was a child, that same experience or the same statement from the teacher, "You failed," could be upsetting because it would remind him of his belief of being a failure. Failure itself is just another word. The same word can either help someone improve or be an undesirable experience. A problem is only created when we attach negative meanings to it. Unfortunately for millions of people, failure is a big fear and a negative belief. In Chapter 6, I list the few limiting beliefs I found that created raging anger. The belief of being a failure is one of them. Here is what many people don't know: as far as our mind is concerned, there is no such thing as failure, only feedback. For our mind, everything is energy, everything is about possibility, learning, gathering information, making mistakes, improving, and having fun. Failure is just a term we learned to use to express discontent with an outcome or ourselves. It is our responsibility to shape our language and our emotions to focus not on the negative, but the positive. We will be surprised what a difference that makes in the long run. One of my mentors, Matt Browning, was teaching a seminar a few years ago and asked the audience, "Who would like to know how to make $1 million?" Hundreds of hands went up in the air. Then he asked, "Who would like to know how to go bankrupt?" A few people timidly raised their hands. Most of us knew this was a trick question. Then he said, "You see, this is the problem. If you are not interested in learning how mistakes are made, and if you have not made mistakes or learned from those who have, how will you know when you're doing something wrong? You could be walking down the wrong path and never know it." He continued, "When you have made your fair share of mistakes and learned from them, you will see those around you as others are doing it. Since you know what is happening and how to recover from mistakes, you can use your lived experience and help people. What you called your failures will become a gift to the community. Instead of hanging your head in shame, you now have credibility, and you can make millions. Dare to make mistakes and learn from them." This lecture created a huge paradigm shift for me. If we think about it, there are thousands of great inventions around us today we are fortunate to enjoy: cars, airplanes, cell phones, coffee makers, different light bulbs, different food recipes, among others. These all had to go through the process of trial and error before they became successful. If they were afraid of failure, we would be stuck in the Stone Age. Limiting beliefs on failure. If you found any negative beliefs around failure, write them down. See what context your mind perceived as failure and why. Some examples are: I am a failure if I can't make my parents happy. I am a failure. These are a great example of the mind's pseudo-logic. If I don't do certain things by a certain time. I am a failure if I don't take care of other people's problems. I'm a failure if I am not successful. I am a failure. I heard this directly from clients. It does not even make sense logically. They had false perceptions about both success and failure, and their mind kept them in that infinite negative loop. These clients also had strong challenges with acceptance and love. Examine what your mind presented to you. You can use the techniques in Chapter 9 to help you overcome the fear of failure and other harmful beliefs that may apply. Not good enough. There are millions of people worldwide too shy to approach others, uncomfortable to present in front of groups, or are unable to engage in activities such as sports, dance, or hands-on workshops. This shyness and discomfort are typically prompted by the negative belief, "I am not good enough." While this is a more commonly recognized negative belief, many people do not realize the adverse consequences it can create. It can get in the way of prospering and having fun in life. This negative belief can also stop people from getting out of their comfort zones where they could experience growth and expansion. The belief, "I am not good enough," is often confronted with comments that try to invalidate the belief. Some people might say, "You are good enough. Stop giving me that excuse." You know what to do. That might work for a few people temporarily. However, since the deeper, emotional part of the mind holds the belief, a few seemingly logical words are not enough to eliminate it. The change needs to take place at the subconscious level. By attacking our own thoughts, the root cause still remains in place. Such messages come up for very specific reasons, and I prefer to work with them instead of against them. As I described this in Chapter 1, the more we ignore something, the stronger it can be presented to us next time. You might also be familiar with the famous saying, "What we resist, persists." We are only pushing against our own mind. This limiting belief has many variations. It can appear in different contexts such as work, dating, sales, presentations, networking, etc. It can even come together with other limiting beliefs. Here are some common examples: I am not good at sales. I am not good with women men. I am not good enough for my mother's love. Sometimes a statement is generalized and says, "I am not enough," or "I am not good enough." When we believe that we are not good enough, our mind will present outside circumstances and everyone else as better than we are. It can make us view ourselves as less than, no matter how talented we might be. Our skills, physical attributes, and talents could easily be suppressed by this limiting belief. You may have heard people end their sentence with, "But what do I know?" with a resentful tone. These statements may indicate that they are running doubts and limiting beliefs about themselves. It is possible that they have versions of the not good enough belief running. Many people speak in such terms and expressions, but to the untrained ear it may not be evident that they carry negative perceptions. In addition to feeling not good enough, there can be a collection of other harmful beliefs that hide in the background. I will show you how to find them. Finding negative beliefs behind not being good enough. Find a comfortable, quiet place where you feel safe. Leave the logic outside for now. Trust your intuition instead. You can play some meditation music if it helps. Never challenge any belief your own mind presents to you or other people reveal to you. It takes humility to open up, and you must offer full acceptance and support for that level of honesty. Put judgment aside and act out of kindness. We typically judge because we don't understand something, because our beliefs are challenged, or because we could not be in the judge's shoes without fear and other negative emotions. You can say, "My mind said that, I am not good enough, because," wait and see what your mind presents to you. Ask multiple times and purge the mind till it runs out of answers. Write down each response, which will likely be a negative belief. These are like bubbles. They come to the surface and pop. They may not show again for a long time, so learn to capture them. Here are a few answers I have gathered over the years to this question above. Because, every time I do something, it goes wrong. Whenever I do something, I ruin it. I am stupid. I am dumb. I am a failure. I am a disappointment to my parents. I am a disappointment to my mom. Female symbol. I am a disappointment to my dad. Male symbol. I am a loser. I can't do anything right. I don't feel worthy. I am not deserving of good things coming to me. I deserve a bad life. There are many possibilities, and each person's answers can be slightly different. Most often the originating events come from childhood, or it can come from our parents' past. These are the quiet voices that have been begging to be recognized for most of our lives. Now you have the tools to extract them and to eliminate them. Take the answers you have in one by one, and apply the techniques in Chapter 9 to work through them. I will talk more about the male-female symbolic significance in the section of acceptance later in this chapter. We all have the ability to overcome challenges at any stage in our lives. We need to learn to release our negative emotions and limiting beliefs and set positive goals for our future. Special note, after you worked with limiting beliefs of not being good enough, and others which showed up along with it, make sure you set future goals and visions with excitement while applying humility and compassion. There's also a danger of going too far and seeing yourself as better than everyone else. A few clients told me they felt superior to other people. That can be problematic in the long run because it can foster alienation from others and can lead to different forms of self-sabotage. Every person has something unique to offer and can teach us new and valuable information. Fear of judgment and fear of rejection. This is a big problem in both the personal and the professional arenas. In the romantic arena, we can see different men interested in approaching women, but they shut down and sabotage themselves because they are afraid of rejection. It's important to note, while this often manifests in men, it is not uncommon for women to experience this fear. The professional arena is no different. Many companies have a difficult time retaining new sales talent. Most new salesmen leave shortly after they are hired because of this fear. The fear of rejection costs millions of lost opportunities worldwide every year, most of which cannot be measured by money because the cost is so high. I hope you can see how universal and enormous this problem is. This fear can stop innovation, entrepreneurship, and passion and make people settle for a mundane life. Let me introduce you to some basic concepts and after that show you what you can do to understand and work through your fear of judgment and rejection. Fear of judgment outside the judicial system. The word judgment should not have any negative connotations. The word judgment typically suggests that a decision was made, and an opinion was expressed. Why, then, are we so afraid of judgment? Because by default, we are wired to take things personally. Our mind can interpret other people's questions or comments as attacks. Nobody likes to feel attacked. When we feel that way, our immediate tendency is to assume something is wrong with us. This assumption is the cause that creates the negative emotions. Unfortunately, negative emotions, shame and defense mechanisms are automatic byproducts of limiting beliefs. If they don't serve us, we can let the negative beliefs go, and the shame, negative emotions and unnecessary defenses will go away also. When others express an opinion that conflicts with our subconscious beliefs, we feel a visceral reaction. This can feel like butterflies in the stomach, a tightening of the throat, or general discomfort. Sometimes, this manifests as physical pain if the mind's messages have been ignored for too long. Have you ever heard someone honking the horn while stopped at a red light? I have seen this a few times, and every time it was a very interesting experience. In one instance, a person recognized that the car next to him was a friend. He honked the horn to say hi. Several people got curious, and some people got upset. Those who were curious looked around wondering what the honking was about. Some people got downright angry and used hand gestures to the car behind them to stay quiet. The car behind them was not even using the horn. It was patiently waiting at a red light. As you can see, the response was based on the perception of the event, and some people got very mad even though somebody was only saying a friendly hello. When other people and circumstances trigger us, the emotions we experience are presented for specific reasons. Our mind is telling us to become aware of messages, typically limiting beliefs and differently internal conflicts in ourselves. This is what's called our emotional guidance system. Our mind is desperately trying to tell us that living in pain and fear are not a normal part of life. It loves us more than we love ourselves, and it communicates to us through these pain signals to change. It wants us to pay attention, to understand the messages and to resolve them. Our mind already knows what we are capable of, and it is saying to grow, evolve and overcome these limitations. Some limiting beliefs that create such visceral reactions are, I am not good enough, I am a failure, I am not safe, I am not accepted. There are several other possibilities. I list many in this chapter and throughout the book. Next, let me share a short story as I worked with a young man who had a fear of judgment. He told me about it, not a long story, just a few details. Then I asked, when others judge you, what does that say about other people and what does that say about you? He looked at me strangely, so I asked the same questions again. He got it this time. He answered, it means they don't like me and I am not good enough. Very good, I replied. If you could imagine that people like you, you are good enough, and there is no judgment at all, how would you feel? He looked at me again. He squinted, so I repeated the question slowly. Imagine that people like you, you are good enough, and there is no judgment at all, how would you feel? He took a moment, reflected on the question and slowly murmured, I would feel accepted and loved. Then he paused and said, you just blew my mind. I smiled and told him, I knew the answers, I just wanted you to discover them, too. He immediately started telling me how his mind took him back to when he felt his father did not accept him. He then realized how his limiting beliefs together, people don't like me, I am not good enough, my dad did not accept me, contributed to his fear of judgment. These beliefs were his perceptions, which affected his emotional responses throughout his life. Now that he is aware of these, he can change them and free himself from negative emotions and unwanted triggers. He also realized that he was very defensive most of his life, because he felt uncomfortable around people and in many circumstances. When we act out of protection, defense, we are less intelligent. Dr. Bruce Lipton in Biology of Belief. Our mind's view of rejection. Most people are so afraid of rejection, they would rather stay stagnant and live unfulfilling lives than risk rejection. All clients I interviewed or worked with had challenges with this fear. As I indicated earlier, this is a serious problem. It is universal, and most people don't know what to make of it. It feels very real, and it can come with uncomfortable reactions and many different negative emotions. While the term fear of rejection is used very often and very broadly, it is just another group of negative beliefs we carry subconsciously. The fear of rejection can make people perceive feedback and questions as judgments and attacks, even if the messages are kind and constructive. Sometimes the simple exchange of looks is enough to instigate this fear. Once triggered, they can become aggressive or remove themselves from the situation and leave. Both cases are defense mechanisms. They feel rejected, but that feeling is only their interpretation. It is not indicative of actually being rejected. The feeling is subconscious, of course, and not a choice. If they removed their limiting beliefs around it, they would feel neutral in that situation and not be triggered at all. This fear can only be changed once we become aware of our own patterns. Otherwise, we will continue to repeat behaviors without knowing that there were messages and lessons in those interactions. As I mentioned, the learnings are always positive. As I worked with people, I found that when their mind was trying to protect them from rejection, it was not focusing on rejection. Rejection does not actually exist in the world, it only exists in our mind. It's a fear that we create for ourselves. For my clients, rejection was most often interpreted by their mind as their inability to fit in, being a failure, not being accepted, and not being loved in different contexts. Below is another example. One client said he was not going after his dreams, and he did not know what was stopping him. He said he had a fear of rejection, which kept him stuck. We did some detective work and found that his limiting belief was not deserving better results. His mind put a roadblock into place for him from moving forward because it was honoring that belief. Remember, from the mind's perspective all beliefs are valid. Because he was not aware of the real culprit and the real block, he called it fear of rejection. Each person can have a different cluster of limiting beliefs and internal conflicts that create this fear. Many of them are listed in this chapter and throughout the book. To see what applies to you specifically, use the approach I've shared below. You can start to discover the different negative beliefs and continue to calibrate to see what else needs to shift and change. The best way to find out is by interacting with others. Once we understand the different messages and learn the lessons from them, our triggers and negative emotions will be released. We can view and experience life with more reason and joy. Instead of experiencing so many negative emotions, we will have more choices in the way we respond, and we will have more resources available to us to use. We will be calmer and more charismatic. We will display strength and show abilities to manage situations even in moments of adversity. We can shift our focus from "please don't reject me" to "how can I be of service to you?" When we do that, we can see a situation in its true form. We begin to realize that the other person could have different expectations, the timing was off, and there could have been other people involved, and many things we don't even know. Instead of reacting out of defense, we can ask for feedback and come from a place of sincerity and caring. In my experience, most people are very willing to give feedback. We can learn from that, adjust our message, and do it again. Also, sometimes no simply means not yet. When we have this mindset, we can amplify our happiness and can also multiply our income. How to eliminate the fear of judgment and rejection. If you found other limiting beliefs from the sections above, not being good enough and beliefs about failure, work on them. They can certainly contribute to the fear of judgment and fear rejection. If you found that the fear of judgment or the fear of rejection apply to you, go ahead and use the time dynamics technique in Chapter 9 to release those specific fears. You can go deeper and also ask these questions and write down each answer. Keep the answer short and honest. No explanations or logic should be part of the exercise. 1. What does it say about people in the outside world when they judge me? 2. What does it say about me when people judge me? 3. What does it say about people in the outside world when they reject me? 4. What does it say about me when people reject me? I've documented some real-life examples below. People judge me, reject me because I am not like the world's unfair. People don't understand me. I am not accepted. I am not good enough. Why can't people think I am cool? The limiting belief is possibly, I am not cool. Why can't I be normal? I am not normal, or I cannot be normal. If I express how I feel, others will not like it and I will be rejected. This is a more specific one. I hope you see the amazing logic of our subconscious mind and how it talks to us nonstop. Take a look at your list and see if you have any negative beliefs. I shared many examples. Some may overlap or repeat. When you find your limiting beliefs, use the techniques in Chapter 9 to eliminate them. Fear of not being accepted. Acceptance, similar to love, is a very broad term. It can encompass many things: accepting the world, being self-accepting, accepting circumstances, and more. However, I have found from my client experiences that the most important building block to start with is acceptance from our mom and dad, male-female symbol. These symbols show up in our lives over and over again and remind us how we emotionally relate to them from the past. A quick example is, if you had a good relationship with your mom when you were a child, you would likely have good relationships with other females symbolizing her, friends, bosses, and partners. I will give another example on this later in this section. The male symbol works similarly. I have coached many young females who were hurt by their father or grandpa. Male symbol, When they were young, they continually attracted the same type of males into their lives in the form of partners, bosses, and friends. Their mind reintroduced the symbolic messages to them over and again. They repeatedly experienced the same type of hurt until they realized that these messages were unresolved issues asking for attention. When we believe that we are not accepted, we subconsciously still look for acceptance without being aware of it. It can make us seek approval and validation from others and even come across as needy behaviors. This limiting belief can also cause us to be easily triggered by interactions and people. Both male and female symbols are highly recommended to be healthy and healed in order for us to build good relationships with both genders and feel secure about ourselves and enjoy a balanced life. The lack of acceptance can be expressed in many different forms. Sometimes, it's explained through longer phrases. I've heard statements such as, "I can't say what I want," or "I won't be accepted if I don't please others," "I will not be accepted if I don't do what others say," "I will not be accepted if I don't do what others want," "I will not be accepted." Since most people use the same negated language patterns throughout their lives, they may not say acceptance, they might say rejection instead. This is where specific words become very important. I never correct anyone's language during the interview or the discovery phase, because that would project my own views and interpretations onto their situation. Using the previous examples, they could sound like this: "I can't say what I want," or "I will be rejected if I don't please others," "I will be rejected if I don't do what others say," "I will be rejected if I don't do what others want," "I will be rejected." We can carry several of these false beliefs that silently influence us through the day. Sometimes an entire stack of them can be present and even sound similar to one another. I interviewed people to see what they thought about acceptance, if they felt accepted, and how. In most cases, they did not realize that this is a big missing piece. Based on this research, 6 different answers came up. What are your perceptions about acceptance? Do you feel accepted? 1. Yes, very rare. 2. Not by my mom. 3. Not by my dad. 4. Not by either of them. 5. Not by self, no self-acceptance. 6. Not by a group. I briefly touch on the group aspect of this in the chapter 4. Not being part of, and I do not belong. Not being accepted by mom or dad plays out differently for women and men. Remember how the mind categorizes beliefs by the male-female perspectives. I have helped females with the limiting belief that dad did not accept them. Throughout their lives, they sought a man's approval. Some said they were needy and overbearing in their relationships and were unsure why. Later, they got divorced and continued to have difficulty dating because the original perceptions of not being accepted by dad, male symbol, was still in place. I've worked with many male clients who had a limiting belief that their mom did not accept them. They told me how they also felt needy and were looking for a woman's approval nonstop, and their female partners started losing attraction because of that. There are probably millions of men worldwide who could use some help regarding acceptance issues with dad. Conversely, there are probably millions of women also who have the same challenge with mom. It does not take much to find out. It is one simple and honest question away. Different acceptance challenges can exist simultaneously. Personally, I've had the best results when I handled each belief individually and separately. Of course, the subconscious always gives the best approach and the best metaphor to resolve things, so remaining flexible is the key. Acceptance is an ever-expanding concept. The more you work on yourself, the more you will understand human nature, universal laws, and why things are happening. Through these learnings, you can become better informed and shape your life and help the world with your new and expanded understanding. This takes time and effort, so keep going. Some client feedback after their breakthrough work: a young man called me a few months after his breakthrough and said, "My wife is so much more attracted to me now. I used to be needy, but I didn't realize it. I have such a healthy self-esteem now. I am calm, smiling a lot, and feel awesome in my body. Thank you." A lady client texted me after her breakthrough and said, "For the first time in my life, people don't trigger me. I am so grateful. I can be cordial, kind, feel good and laugh, and I can observe them from a better place instead of running from them and fearing judgment all the time." Important note: when our self-esteem is strong, we can subconsciously push other people out of their comfort zone, whose self-esteem is not as sound. We will be able to see it in their micro reactions, such as in their eyes, facial twitches, or changes in posture. They might swallow, get red, or even look away. These reactions are subconscious and they often won't know that we can notice them. Help them feel better by smiling, being accepting, and non-judgmental. Learn new ways to manage your higher self-esteem and act out of kindness, sensibility, and responsibility. Be a positive example. Remember, the higher our self-esteem is, the larger our comfort zone becomes. Chapter 6: Our Power and Strength. When we feel overpowered and unable to defend ourselves, we can establish beliefs such as I am helpless, I am powerless, and even, I am weak. After being defeated, many of my clients felt like a coward and said it flat out. I am a coward. While most people might disregard these words, they do not realize that these statements are potential limiting beliefs. These limiting beliefs can originate from events in our childhood, in our relationships, or even at work. They can also be passed down to us from our parents. The initiating events can be non-physical or physical in nature. Some non-physical examples are being wrongfully treated, humiliated, verbally hurt, and bullied at school or at work. Some physical examples are being physically or sexually harmed, being in dangerous life or death situations. I have found limiting beliefs relating to weakness, powerlessness, and helplessness were most common for trauma and abuse survivors. In most cases, it was not obvious till we did the interview. Vulnerability. Vulnerability is an important concept. Many people only understand it as being weak, or being unable to do something. For example, people who were in a life or death situation define vulnerability as dangerous, that is combat. Business people talk about it as a possible costly mistake. While these beliefs may be true in those specific environments, most people stop right here. They do not realize that our mind's definition goes beyond these negative connotations. In the beginning, I did not understand the meaning of vulnerability either. After I began working on myself and helped other people transform, I learned a new meaning: truth. Every one of us has an inherent need to expose our vulnerable side from time to time. We would like to open up, ask for advice, and share our feelings. However, limiting beliefs, including the ones that we are weak or we are powerless, helpless, come with fear and often shame. These emotions and shame can reduce our willingness to be vulnerable. In this protection mode, we cannot lower our guard, rest comfortably, accept help, and heal. I've heard stories from people who had expressed strong aversions toward others, who accepted help and were eventually capable of being vulnerable. I heard these people referred to as weak. They also believed that it is a sign of weakness to accept help. Deep down, we all know that vulnerability is a necessity for friendships, long-term relationships, therapy, and healing. However, when our mind blocks compassion from us because it considers it unacceptable or even dangerous, we begin to feel alone, unwanted, and unloved. There will always be situations and circumstances where we feel vulnerable or out of place. Whether we're traveling to a new place, meeting new people, or going on a date, there will be times in our lives where vulnerability is necessary. Interestingly, some of these moments can be the most memorable ones. When we heal our issues at the subconscious level and remove our fear of judgment and rejection, life gives us a brand new experience. We can start to live without unnecessary triggers and emotional misinterpretations. We can interact with the world genuinely and authentically without hiding and defending certain aspects of ourselves. This authenticity and the lack of need for defensive behaviors, our vulnerability will exhibit our true power and strength. This becomes evident when we understand at our core that each and every one of us is motivated and driven by only one major concept: love. Dualities and extremes. There's duality in all aspects of life. We have night and day, black and white, hot and cold, good and bad, dangerous and safe. Millions of dualities surround us without our knowledge. You might call these dualities extremes. Our limiting beliefs make us focus on one side of a duality, often resulting in misinterpretations. To give you an example, when the mind says, "I am not good enough," it does not acknowledge the many things we excel at. Our mind is stuck in one side of this duality. When we are caught in this extreme, the world appears black and white, without different shades of gray. Dualities, extremes, and anything in between are possibilities for the human mind. We can pick and choose what fits our needs and our desires. Once different limiting beliefs are resolved and released, we are able to think outside the extremes. We can notice different aspects of life and have increased choices and options. Affirmations about power. You may have heard common affirmations about power and strength such as, "We are powerful, we are strong, and we are unstoppable." For years, people have approached me, asking about these affirmations. The main concern was, sometimes they worked and sometimes there was no noticeable change at all. When we say something, we also have to truly feel and believe it at our core. If our subconscious mind holds a belief that is different than the affirmation can conflict with the mind and its higher logic. For example, if we say, "I am powerful," while deep down, we feel exploited, powerless, and helpless, the affirmation doesn't make much difference. In our mind's eye we have unlimited power and an ability to create a fulfilling life. That changes when we have beliefs contradicting these default assumptions. Esther Hicks responded to the question about the value of affirmations where she said, "Which end of the stick are you really on? Are you saying the affirmation because you really feel the power that you have, or are you saying the affirmation because you are trying to get away from the opposite, which are feelings of disempowerment?" My preference is to eliminate the limiting beliefs first and then use the affirmations to install new and congruent beliefs for the future. Fear of our own power. I have worked with many clients who had a strong fear of their own power, and, while they each had different stories about how that fear developed, they all felt that their power was beyond their comfort level. Some clients said they felt their fear of power after they hurt someone and made them cry. Some others told me that they realized their power, but had a belief that they were not deserving of their power, and became afraid of it and even felt guilty about it. The decisions we make come with consequences. We have the power to change the course of our own life and alter the lives of others. Our job is to learn to manage this power responsibly. Power will test anyone's character. Giving someone power will amplify who they already are inside. Let's use it for good. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Marianne Williamson. Client session on helplessness. One of my clients, who was in his late 20s, struggled with a notorious bully at work. This bully took great pleasure in talking down to this young man. He used derogatory comments to embarrass him in meetings and in front of others. This young man, understandably, felt very helpless and intimidated by this aggressive coworker. Through our interview, we discovered patterns that were almost identical to his current experience. He also mentioned that he had similar issues with his dad. When we began our regression session, his mind gave him a metaphor story where he happened upon two other men yelling and screaming at each other. When he entered the scene, they looked over and started yelling at him. My client quickly became uncomfortable, and I asked him to take himself out of the picture and only observe it from the outside. There is no need to be part of the story if it creates discomfort for us. We only need to observe these events, understand the moral of the story and learn from it. This will release your limiting belief. When I use regression, I incorporate many different additional techniques. This depends on what the situation is and what the client's metaphor is. We used a few different steps to make the situation safe for my client, so he could re-enter the scene. After that, he spoke to the arguing men. As he talked to them, he understood what they were upset about. He told them his view of the situation. Once two men understood where he was coming from, they calmed down and the scene became peaceful. He said to me, "It is interesting how my mind changed the whole scene. Once I resolved the situation, it is a completely different story now." "Yes," I answered, "the mind wants us to learn the lessons, instead of getting wrapped up in the story." As I mentioned many times, this is where the majority of the people make a big mistake. Get wrapped up in the story and completely miss the symbolic meaning of it. After the scene was calm for this young man, we focused on the positive learnings. He learned that he did not used to speak up and stick up for himself, and he always stayed quiet. Once he understood that, he decided to speak his truth and claim his space in the world from then on. He also learned that the two men in his regression had a valid point and they were upset because their point hadn't been considered. He told me he did not used to listen to others and consider input from them. He was very inconsiderate that way. We also discovered another limiting belief in addition to being helpless. He felt he was not worthy of having an opinion. He did not realize it until we were in regression. He said, "Every time I wanted to express my opinion, I started having strange feelings in my throat as if it wanted me to stay quiet." Not being worthy of having an opinion combined with feeling helpless totally made me shut down and hide who I really was. Amazing. Watching his transformation afterwards was remarkable. He went back to work, but he never told his co-workers about the regression session he had. The hurtful and obnoxious bully totally changed, almost as if he had the session and not my client. He hardly spoke to my client anymore. When he did, there was none of that ugly stuff and uncomfortable interaction. This became the new pattern. Soon after, my client was promoted and started to climb the ladder of success. He was surprised how his life changed when he changed his mindset and released his deeply buried limiting beliefs. I have come across many similar situations. Every single client I have helped with these beliefs came back and reported how their life has completely transformed. The old negative interactions with coworkers, friends and family members were gone. I share a few stories in Chapter 5 also where clients told me a few months after their breakthrough how everyone was treating them with respect and others did not trigger them. It only goes to show us who we are, co-creating our life. Ultimately, we are in control. When I worked with limiting beliefs about powerlessness and helplessness, most stories presented were uncomfortable and contentious. Seek professional help if these apply to you. Only attempt to use regression if you have experience with it and know how to work with trauma. Make sure you teach the mind the positive lessons and forgive yourself in the event. If you want to work on it yourself, use the empty chair technique from Chapter 9, which is safe. You may want to read the entire chapter before you use the techniques. Greatness lies, not in being strong, but in the right using of strength, and strength is not used rightly when it serves only to carry a man above his fellows for his own solitary glory. He is the greatest whose strength carries up the most hearts by the attraction of his own. Henry Ward Beecher. The need to control. Since this book is about different limiting beliefs that take away a good life from millions of people, you might ask how control is related to that theme. I included this because problems with control could tie in with negative beliefs, fears and the belief of being powerless. How many people do you know who have a strong need for control? From micromanagers to controlling spouses and siblings, we can find many different forms of it. Some people use money to control others and situations. Some people use indirect and manipulative language to do the same. Many people even use physical force. Why is it that the majority of people are so desperate to control while there are only a few really happy and successful people who are calm and composed having everything under control? The answer is not money. People who have a need to control are running very deep subconscious fears without realizing it. They spend quite a lot of energy trying to control others and outside circumstances. There are different things missing in their lives and control is a substitute for those. But how could we find out what is missing? It is not always a simple one-step process and it can be hidden from us. 2. I will show you some questions to ask in order to find the answer. I will also share a short client interview later where he had a strong need to control and did not know why. We have been taught most of our lives to have an outwardly focus, where we interpret events and circumstances as if they were out of our control. We habitually point the finger at the outside world and believe that things happen accidentally. With this perspective, we took ourselves out of the game and forgot our own influence. We forgot how our thoughts, emotions and beliefs create the experiences for us, which we have the tools to change. That was my biggest challenge while I was seeking solutions to my problems. I had digestive pains, headaches, and many strange conditions that are too long to list. All physical tests came back fine from the hospitals. The doctors did not understand where my problems stemmed from. This went on for 20 years. One doctor in a very prestigious Boston hospital told me that I should meditate. I did not know what it meant back then and he did not say any more about it. That was the end of that discussion. After I almost died, I discovered that my problems were emotionally induced and the physical was only a manifestation of the unhandled emotional baggage. The multiple seizures and the small stroke were all signals from my subconscious to change things in my life. I did not know I could do that. I always did the best I could, thinking one day things will change, doing the same thing and expecting different results. Yes, we could call it insanity to think that way. I did not realize that I was doing my best but was still using the wrong approaches and strategies. Most of my life I viewed the outside world as separate from me and I was asking why me, what is happening to me? But after my big trouble I experienced a major shift inside me. I asked myself a different question for the first time in my life, which was completely subconscious. Instead of, "What is happening to me?" I asked, "What am I doing?" Once I realized that I was creating those circumstances, my subconscious mind granted me my power back. It was not an easy pill to swallow, but that knowledge is what allowed me to take the control and rebuild my life. Whenever we see someone controlling or when we catch ourselves doing that, we can ask ourselves, what is the mind afraid of? Another couple really good and unusual questions to ask are, what benefits am I getting when I control, and what will be missing when I do not control? This previous sentence is a type of language pattern that helps pull out some of our deeper beliefs. The mind never does anything without a benefit, even if it appears to be negative at first. It can create the need to control to give someone power, importance, and significance. Some people also said that they felt safe when they controlled others or situations. Each person can be slightly different. You can look at the words I've highlighted in bold, and you should see potential limiting beliefs. These are also important messages from the mind. People don't say, "I want power," when they feel powerful. They don't say they want to be important when they feel that way. They only say, "I want to be significant," when they feel insignificant. We only say we want these things because they are lacking, just like we don't say we are hungry when we are full. This is another example on why our language is so important. Our words can unlock significant messages that often exceed our immediate understanding. Every human is motivated by higher guiding principles, such as love, mission, contribution, and significance. If they're negative beliefs like we are powerless, we are not important, and we are not significant, the mind will go out of its way to signal these conflicts to us. It creates messages for us, sometimes in the form of emotions, pain, and even through strange behaviors. The need to control also creates negative emotions such as anger, resentment, fear, and hurt, which take diminished quality of life. So in addition to the unattractive qualities of controlling behaviors, we are also experiencing negative emotions that are not beneficial for us. The mind will send us signals to resolve them. If this applies to your life, you can understand what your mind is telling you by asking these questions. What is my mind afraid of? What benefits am I getting when I control? What will be missing when I do not control? Write down your answers. You might get several of them. Capture your thoughts and pay attention to the logic your mind shares with you. Discovering some other causes of control issues. The following is one more way to discover what behind your control-focused behaviors. You can ask yourself this simple question: what is important to you about control or being in control? Ask this question several times and write down the answers. Ask as many times as possible until you purge your mind of answers. See which ones are limiting beliefs. This will give you the first layer of what is behind the need to control. There are several other layers hiding behind it. See an example below. When I worked with a client to help him discover what drove his desperate need to control. Interview. This is a shortened version of the session. I will show how far removed the real drivers are and how the mind's pseudo-logic is not evident until we learn to speak its language. I asked a few times until he ran out of answers. What is important to you about control? The client said the following: outcome to avoid judgment. Here you can see possible fear of judgment, that I stay in charge, force them the direction I want them to take. Manipulation. Okay, thank you, I said. And what is important to you about manipulation? He responded. Gratification. What does gratification get you? I asked. He replied, certainty that I have control of what is happening in and around me. What will certainty give you? I asked. He explained, certainty leads to no stress, no fear, so I can feel powerful and empowered. I got my way. In this example, you can see how far removed the answer is from the problem. This person engaged in controlling acts and manipulative behaviors to obtain gratification, certainty, and to feel powerful. Why would anyone say, "I want to feel powerful," if they already felt that way in their core? After a brief talk, he told me because he felt powerless. The above interview depicts how you can develop a new logic in line with the understanding of deep-root drivers. These drivers influence the acts, behaviors, and decisions we make daily. All decisions and behaviors are directed by the mind to achieve a higher positive intention. You can learn to ask the higher purpose and the intention of the mind and find what really moves you to do things. In many circles they call this your why, or the motivation behind your actions. The mind never designs anything, even if it seems bad, without positive intent. You and I are no exception to this logic. We all work this way. Now we can also learn to think this way. Knowing and using this information gives us control of our lives so we can direct it and guide it appropriately. Severe anger and control issues. I have found something really interesting as I worked with people from different cultures. People came to me for help with inappropriate angry outbursts, sometimes even ugly rage. When we talked to discover what their mind's messages were and why the anger appeared, they told me the following. The answers did not always come out in this form initially, sometimes we had to dig deeper. The most common answers were, I have this anger or rage because I feel like a failure. I just want to be heard. People don't listen to me. People don't take me seriously. I just want to feel important. I don't feel safe. I just want to be accepted. I just want to be understood. I want to feel powerful. Possible limiting belief, I am powerless. The only reason why people say, I want to be heard is because they have a limiting belief that they are not heard. This can occur in different contexts. Probably one of the beliefs that tie into this is, I just want to be loved, because they don't feel loved. You heard me say this throughout the book. This one is so far outside of people's conscious awareness that they rarely even think about it. Even a few limiting beliefs can totally diminish the quality of life and create strong negative emotions along with unattractive behaviors. That is why we have the saying, we are not our behaviors. This is a tough concept to grasp, until we do deeper transformational work and experience this for ourselves. Changing our distorted perceptions and healing our issues will allow us to have more fun and live a more fulfilling life. We can move from anger and fear to fun and laughter. Chapter 7. Stuck in our deepest fears. Some of the deepest and often least obvious beliefs we run are beliefs about safety and self-preservation. This topic is very complex. There are several layers to it. Self-preservation is our subconscious mind's #1 job, but it isn't always rational about it. This chapter explains the negative beliefs I found relating to safety and danger that resulted in extreme stress and anxiety for my clients. These beliefs showed up most obviously for PTSD and trauma survivors. I also found many everyday situations where the belief relating to safety was hidden. It didn't take much time to discover that these beliefs were contributing to sleep problems, approach anxiety, and even procrastination. Each and every one of us has rational and irrational fears about safety and danger. Rational fears relating to safety and survival serve us. Here are a couple of examples. When we look both ways to cross the street or keep a safe distance from the edge of a cliff, we have hundreds of similar rational fears focusing on our safety and guiding us through the day. Most of them are completely outside of our awareness. However, millions of people struggle with irrational fears about safety and danger. Their mind cannot distinguish helpful fears from debilitating ones. The subconscious mind looks at both types of fears with the same validity. Not feeling safe and feeling in danger are some of the most exhausting beliefs we can carry. Living like that for an extended period of time is a recipe for burnout. I have interviewed people who did not feel safe anywhere, including in their own home. They put bars up on their windows, or installed expensive alarm systems. Some even had baseball bats and weapons throughout the house just in case they were burglarized. They often lived in nice neighborhoods. It was quiet at night and the neighbors were friendly. But it didn't matter, because they subconsciously believed that they were not safe. Their subconscious mind could not tell the physical safety apart from the emotional misperception of safety. They realized that the things they did were quite exaggerated, but that did not stop their worries and concerns. Those worries and concerns need to be resolved in the subconscious mind. I describe our mind as an event recorder. It records our life non-stop and monitors how we feel. Once we believe that we are not safe, our survival is at risk, or we are in danger, our mind gives us instructions to fight back, run away, and get to a safe place. Ultimately, the goal is to survive. This is part of our primal programming. If the perceptions are correct, these programs are executed properly and they serve us. The incorrect perceptions of safety and danger are the exhausting ones. After an unsafe event is over, some people can continue life the way it used to be without any negative effects. The problem begins when someone leaves the original environment, finds safety, but continues to see the world as unsafe and or dangerous. This was most common for my PTSD and trauma survivor clients. We can find danger or safety anywhere. It depends on what the subconscious mind is focusing on and how rationally it interprets the environment. As you know, I am talking about the irrational aspects of safety here, the irrational beliefs that life is dangerous and there is no safety get in the way of relaxing and enjoying life in the long run. These beliefs can make people see attacks and danger everywhere. They can become hypervigilant. They can do this even in the most comfortable settings. This can happen in an elevator, in open spaces, in the grocery store, wherever the mind perceives that their safety is compromised. I said this many times in the book. This does not happen out of choice. This can happen to anyone who is in that sort of environment. It doesn't matter if we are small or big, strong or frail, or if we are a man or a woman. When an event creates negative emotions, the mind labels the memory as needs work. The subconscious mind will be communicating this problem to us, asking for a resolution. These negative emotions and limiting beliefs can also be passed down to us from our parents. Several mothers told me that their children exhibited the same PTSD symptoms that their husbands developed after war or combat. I have come across many different limiting beliefs related to safety. I worked with many trauma, abuse and PTSD cases, where safety concerns were very frequent. Most of the time, they did not know it until we talked about it and did the interview. Some people asked me if they eliminated their irrational survival and safety-related fears, would it cost them something or jeopardize them later? The answer is absolutely no. Survival is engraved in every single one of us. That is our mind's number one job, to preserve the body and to survive. That will never, ever change as long as we live. It's like riding a bike. Once we learn that skill, it becomes part of our neurology and skill set. It is ours to keep. Shedding irrational fears will not take away any skill or asset we acquired. In fact, it liberates us from pain. It will give peace back so we can enjoy life. Holding on to this belief is what causes problems for millions of people, because not addressing the issues can force them to be in perpetual survival mode. Here are some effects of focusing only on survival and staying in self-preservation mode for too long. It can influence how we make money and how much of it we make. Life can easily become a struggle, forming habits that only sustain survival. Food, water, warmth, sex and safety are the priorities. Dr. Don Beck. Spiral dynamics. No higher purpose or making a difference is a consideration. It can destroy romantic relationships. It can influence the quality of sleep. It can adversely influence health. It can make us depressed and hopeless. It can make us become lonely. Below, I have shared some examples on how the mind builds the fear of not being safe. Some of these answers may sound unusual, but they are a lot more common than we realize. Once we are not in a defensive and logical mode, we can hear our own mind speak to us in simple and helpful terms. Some clients told me that when they made eye contact with a stranger in a parking lot or in different public settings, they had an abnormal visceral reaction. I asked them what the reaction was about, and they told me that the person in the situation registered for them as unsafe. Another situation was when a lady told me, "I don't feel safe around this woman." The woman she described was small-framed and frail. She had weak boundaries and was needy, but there was nothing unsafe about her. Some people told me they felt unsafe speaking with their boss. In this case, they usually worry about saying something to their boss that might result in getting fired, so they avoided speaking to him as much as possible. They said, speaking the truth is not always safe. The fear of losing control is another common fear. They said they only feel safe when in control. This fear was explained in the previous chapter, Chapter 6, if you would like to go over it again. There are hundreds of similar situations and concerns daily that our mind is considering, and most of them are outside of our awareness. If you have safety and danger-oriented thoughts and questionable beliefs, I strongly recommend seeing an experienced professional. This topic is very complex and there is a lot more to it than I can explain here in this chapter. I also mentioned in Chapter 6 that the perception of not feeling safe contributes to intense anger outbursts for many people I have interviewed. There are proven and very effective subconscious tools to eliminate irrational fears and non-beneficial beliefs permanently, to give people peace and happiness again. I have had 100% success rate helping many people worldwide with PTSD and trauma. These types of problems tend to be complex and individual in nature. I have developed my own combination techniques for years that incorporate concepts from world-famous practitioners and therapists. I use these subconscious and visual tools to help my clients achieve permanent and lasting change. If you decide to address a part of the problem yourself, you must understand that this is absolutely no replacement for professional help. The type of exercise I share below is safe and can help bring you clarity. Grab a pen and paper and respond to the questions below. You can't type it out, or just talk about it. You must write it out by hand, or you won't have the same benefits. Write down your answers and express honestly. Some questions may sound similar to one another. It is okay to repeat your thoughts and statements in this exercise. 1. In what context do you feel unsafe or in danger? In the context of relationships, being with certain people, on the street, etc. 2. Is there a specific environment where you have this feeling most? Describe the environments in which you feel unsafe. 3. Why do you feel unsafe in those environments? 4. Do you need people to be around you, or is this fear making you want to stay away from others? A. If you need people around, what will those people give you that you don't have by yourself? B. What can you learn from those people? Make this learning positive. Next, write a letter to your fearful self. Through your writing, express a few things, and even if you said it before, it is okay to repeat your thoughts. Do not filter or change what comes to you naturally. 5. What are your thoughts about safety? This can be anything. Just express honestly. 6. Why is it important to you? 7. Why are you feeling this way? 8. What possible benefit does this safety concern give you? 9. What would you have if the fear were gone? You can say peace, freedom, etc., and describe places you could go and things you would do also. Imagine and describe your life without the fear. When you are done with the letter, you can write, I love and I forgive myself. You can look at your answers to find out what your mind was communicating to you. This will give you an opportunity to reflect on your thoughts and feelings. You can keep the letter or discard it. It is up to you. Other irrational safety concerns that can sabotage life. A few clients came to me because they had difficulty sleeping. They would stay awake until late at night and were not able to recharge for the next day. We spoke and I asked some deeper questions to let the subconscious mind answer and not the logical mind. They said that their sleep was disturbed because deep down they did not feel safe. Of course their home was safe and the neighborhood was safe, but their perception and their belief were different. In another instance, a young man asked me to help him with his approach anxiety. This man constantly stopped himself from approaching a woman he was attracted to, but did not know why. Frustrated, he started to blame himself. So, I asked him this question: what benefit do you get when you don't approach her? This might sound a little strange, but this is a type of language pattern, which is very clear to our subconscious mind. He said, well, the benefits I get, I feel calm, I feel a little nervous. Okay, what else then? He said, I also feel safe. Different people express their thoughts and feelings differently. This also applies to negative beliefs. He used the words feel safe as a benefit by not approaching a woman. This may sound quite strange to those people who don't have experience with subconscious logic such as this. They might ask, what is unsafe about approaching a woman? I asked him why his mind considered those situations unsafe or dangerous. He said, she could be with other people, with another man, and I want to avoid a fight or any contention. By not walking up to her, I am safe and away from possible danger. I said this throughout the book, that the mind never does anything without attempting to benefit you. In other words, when the mind instructs a person to do something, it does that because there is a payoff. When this young man's mind stopped him away from approaching women, it was attempting to keep him safe and protecting him from the possibility of harm and danger, even at the cost of the results he wanted. Was there real danger? Likely not, but the mind cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality. In the majority of the cases, danger or the lack of safety is only a perception, not a real threat. This happens much more often than we realize. I have also come across situations where people who were in the process of establishing their business repeatedly sabotaged themselves and did not realize why. In one case, a young business owner had many great ideas, but when it came to implementation, he ended up finding excuses and he stopped. He stopped and seemingly lost interest in pursuing the goals he set for himself a week or two prior. He jumped from one idea to the next, but never completed anything he started. This went on for years. He called his problem procrastination. I asked him a question with subconscious logic. Ask your mind, what does it get when you procrastinate? After we had solid rapport, he answered, when I procrastinate, my mind gets security. I asked, what else does your mind get? He said safety. So I asked, if your mind had safety in the context of your business pursuits, Would it allow you to move forward and stop procrastinating? He paused and reflected on the question and said, yes, since he was an entrepreneur, he was responsible for the cost and the implementation of his ideas. There were financial risks involved and no guarantee for results. He understood that with his logical mind and wanted to take the risk. However, his subconscious viewed necessary risks as unsafe and stopped him from moving forward. While this might be strange to some people, safety considerations are very common for the mind. They can also show up with other limiting beliefs. This occurs subconsciously, and our daily logic will not be able to easily understand it. As I said, the subconscious mind's logic is superior to any other logic and it will win at the end of the day no matter how hard we push against it. This is one familiar negative belief where people don't realize what their mind is doing to them. A very common limiting belief is, love hurts. I mentioned this many times, because it is so common and so damaging. Love is necessary for everyone, like food is. However, if the mind perceives love as hurtful, it might also declare it unsafe. This isn't always the case, but I have heard it from different clients who felt that way. They said, it is not safe to love. If our mind arrives at this conclusion, we will have big problems that need serious attention. If you feel unsafe or in danger in certain situations where there is no logical reason for it, reflect on it and do the exercise I shared in this chapter. If you find yourself stopping yourself from something that is reasonable and you want it, you can ask the question I shared in the two examples. What benefit do you get when you don't do something? Answer honestly and a few times, and some of your answers might be safety considerations. If yes, reflect on those answers and see in what context they show up and why they are there. You can do the paper and pen exercise I showed earlier. Final thoughts. Safety is the main focus of the mind. If our mind believes that we are not safe or certain events or actions are unsafe, it will instruct us to shut down and stay away from them. We often stop pursuing our dreams because nothing is worth jeopardizing our safety even if it is misperceived. Millions of people worldwide stop themselves from achieving better financial results, from getting in a new relationship, and from building a better life. Even if they logically want those results, their subconscious mind stops them because of false safety considerations. We need to make sure our beliefs and perceptions are beneficial and they support our needs and desires. Deep down, this irrational fear ties us down and keeps us from experiencing life in its true colors. There are many safety-related false beliefs and you can find them by examining your emotions and your actions. For safety is not a gadget but a state of mind. Eleanor Everett. Chapter 8. The presence and the absence of love. Love is a very big concept, and it has many definitions. There is love for other people, animals, love for life, for food, love for self, love for the divine and thousands of other things. Unfortunately, many people completely misperceive love or ascribe strange associations to it. I heard people say that love is mushy or it is weird. I have even heard people say that it's lame. All of these associations are incorrect. Sadly, these associations alienate ourselves from love, creating the biggest emotional pain imaginable to us. Very few people know and understand the true meaning of love. Despite the many false definitions, love is something that every single one of us needs. It's as vital as food. Love gives us true happiness, positive motivation, inner peace, and well-being. When we are connected to it and understand it at the subconscious level, we prosper and heal. When we are disconnected from it, the quality of our life diminishes. Life can easily start running with altered negative meanings. Based on my research and client experiences, I have found that the biggest problems stem from not being loved or perceived that we are not loved by another person. This most often translates to our parents or other family members from our childhood. I said this in Chapter 4, not feeling loved at the subconscious level is the third group of limiting beliefs that contributes to suicide attempts. To get to the root of things, I would like to ask you two questions. As you answer them, trust your intuitive answers and not your logical ones. Do you feel loved? What are your thoughts about love? If you said yes and your thought about love were all positive, you are doing well. However, if you said no or your answers were doubtful or negative, you have something important to address. Write those answers down exactly the way they came to you. Make sure you don't change your answers because you feel guilty or ashamed. These are your thoughts, your emotions, and you must respect them, or else they will claim their space in your life somewhere down the line. In my early years of therapy, I used to tiptoe around this issue, even though I could look at a person and tell that they didn't feel loved right away. Today I plainly ask if they feel loved or what they think of love. Their answers are overwhelmingly negative. Limiting beliefs surrounding love are universally present for all my clients, no exception. This problem is everywhere, no matter which country or continent my client is from. I can see this through the computer camera and hear it in their voice and their language. Here are some of the most common limiting beliefs I have found. I am not loved by mom, can be expressed differently, such as, my mom did not love me. I am not loved by dad. I am not loved by either parent. I am not lovable. I don't deserve to be loved. I am not worthy of love. Love is only in fairy tales. Love isn't real. Love hurts. It is not safe to love. I have found that most often a person did not feel loved by one parent, but did by the other. If they felt unloved by both parents, they were experiencing a deeper issue than most. Wherever I look, I see clear signs of this problem. I see so many people every week who do not know what it means to truly feel loved. They typically have some level of disconnection from love. The unresolved emotional issues are usually the main reason. When I use the phrase disconnected from love, I'm purposefully implying that love is an everlasting flow, which is always present. It is all around us. The only reason why many people cannot understand or experience love is because their beliefs are blocking the flow. Limiting beliefs about love are the most damaging beliefs a person can have. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of this topic. This is not something that should be brushed off. A quick talk and simple awareness cannot take care of it either. This needs to be addressed at the subconscious level. Why love can be difficult to convey. Not feeling loved or not believing in love creates the most intense emotional pain imaginable. Our mind will steer our attention away from the pain and will distract us, so we can feel better. The problem is, this creates a conflict that is difficult to interpret. We are subconsciously programmed to understand and experience love. However, when our beliefs affect our experience with love, our subconscious mind will obstruct it from us. It will show us that it exists, but then pulls it away to indicate that there is a problem. Most people don't realize this is happening as a request from our mind to learn and heal our issues. They say, you see, I told you. Love hurts. Imagine telling a 10-month-old child who only crawls that he could be running the marathon in 20 years. The child would look at us, giggle, and crawl on. The message does not register. It is beyond his comprehension. That is why when people say things like, all you need is love, or find love and you will find peace, this is true, but they don't make sense when you're disconnected from love. Because the message goes over people's head, it gets ignored. Just like the baby who couldn't understand the marathon reference, love is not something we touch or hold in our hand. It is something we need to feel and experience first in its true undistorted form, and only then we will be able to understand it. The techniques I shared in Chapter 9 will help accomplish that. I also developed a special technique for this issue, which I use with my breakthrough clients. Deep down, every single one of us understands the need for love. Unfortunately, most of us have learned to deny it. Our mind is trying to teach us this important concept through different lessons. It wants us to finally step up and resolve our negative emotions and limiting beliefs about it. That way we can start enjoying our life the way it was meant to be. Unfortunately, this realization comes to many people in their deathbed. In spite of many false beliefs, love gives us the strength, perseverance, and the energy to move toward our desires and higher purpose. How we get disconnected or blocked from love. Similar to other limiting beliefs from early childhood, such as I am not good enough, or I am a failure, we can form beliefs such as I am not loved, I am not deserving of love, my dad doesn't love me, etc. When a child forms a limiting belief about love, strange things start to happen. The master switch to happiness and well-being turns off. From this point forward he begins to experience the perfect storm. As he grows up, he carries negative beliefs with him. He attracts and picks partners or circumstances to continually prove that his beliefs are true. Wherever he looks, he will find evidence that he is not loved, he does not deserve to be loved, or love hurts. He continues to make choices that are less than ideal for him. He starts looking for substitutes, which can be problematic. This substitution can also make him enter unhealthy relationships, and stay in them. I will talk about ways we substitute for love when we are disconnected from it. With such limiting beliefs in place, it is almost impossible to initiate or sustain a healthy and loving relationship. Here are 3 examples how this can happen. One of my clients recalled an instance from when he was young, about 2 years old, and his mom gave him a stern look because he was not eating his dinner. The child was tired and he perceived this look as unloving, so he decided that he was not deserving of mom's love. From then on, this concept appeared in his relationships with women. He sabotaged himself for decades until he realized that something is happening outside of his awareness. More common examples occur in families where parents fight or get divorced. In these circumstances, the child can start to believe that he is being left alone, unloved, and not cared about. I hear many children of divorced parents say, "Why can't my daddy or mommy love me?" This might seem extreme, but it's how they perceive the situation. Of course, these parents love their kids in their own way, but these parents are already in much emotional pain and they cannot show their affection. Why? Because they feel completely unloved. This might be from their personal unhealed childhood issues. This chain of events continues, unless young parents clean up their emotional baggage before they have kids. Behavioral instructions and techniques are seldom enough to change this momentum. This can be stopped when the negative emotions and the limiting beliefs are healed from the past. The techniques I show in Chapter 9 will help with that. The worst, and unfortunately a very common way to get disconnected from love is in childhood, is where the child gets abused verbally, physically, or even sexually. It is possible that you did not directly experience abuse, but a large percentage of people did. There is one more reason to be understanding and aware. I shared some details in Chapter 5 also when I described the building blocks of self-esteem. These shocking experiences create a stack of limiting beliefs. A few examples of how we substitute love. Love is the most important consideration for our subconscious mind. When we are connected to love, we understand what it truly means. When we are disconnected from it, our mind lets us know that we need to address these issues. The way our mind does this is hardly obvious. Here are some examples. Look around and see how many people are addicted to shopping. Why do they do that? There can be a few different root causes. I have interviewed many people who thought that the new purchases would make others like them, so they can fit in, they will be accepted, and in the end, be loved. The last part was typically so far outside of their conscious awareness that they did not realize what they were doing. Once they heal their issue with love, they can still shop and enjoy the benefits of their purchases, but their motivation becomes more logical. Why do so many people do emotional eating? In many cases the reasons are similar. This can be a symbolic substitute for the missing essential emotional nourishment. Food is there to fill the void, love, in their life. Will food ever be enough to do that? No, of course not. No substitute can and will replace the much-needed love. Once they take care of their emotional issues, they can still eat the same food, but they will enjoy it for different reasons. So many people who are alone likely feel that way because they are disconnected from love in one way or another. In their mind, being alone translates that they are not needed, wanted, and not loved. Their mind messages them through pain to heal their issue with love, so they don't have to feel alone any longer. Again, this is not happening because our mind is punishing us. In fact, our mind is begging us to take care of our emotional baggage, so we can live a happy life. Our mind communicates everything to us out the same consideration, love. Because so many of us do not understand its language, we give false interpretations to our emotions and circumstances. What can parents do to minimize mistakes? A concerned friend with similar childhood experiences asked me what parents can do to help their children avoid making these damaging limiting decisions. There is no quick answer. In my personal experience, most people have issues because their parents' guardians were emotionally unwell. Childhood experiences are very influential. How we grew up and what we observed becomes a part of our patterns and habits. My suggestion for parents and everyone is to work on themselves and heal their own issues from the past. This way, when they guide their kids, they will have more tools and resources to work with. Lots of examples are listed in this book. Learn and master love, compassion, and patience. Each life is unique and we all have our own path. If parents miss something in their childhood, their child should not be the vehicle to substitute that. Parents' lost dreams are being pushed onto their children. Parents' limitations and limiting beliefs similarly are being imposed on many children, sabotaging their child's life. Parenting is a tough job and it comes with many levels of responsibilities. Because the many directions attention must be directed, it is only human to make mistakes. I am a parent and I made many mistakes. I am grateful that I could help my daughter overcome her challenges, which were eerily similar to mine. Also, sometimes a heartfelt talk, apology and sincerity can shift an old perception. Parents need to learn to smile and to have fun. Most adults are too serious. If you raise your children to feel that they can accomplish any goal or task they decide upon, you will have succeeded as a parent and you will have given your children the greatest of all blessings. Brian Tracy. How to find the limiting beliefs, eliminate them and get reconnected to love. Our mind looks at love from different symbolic perspectives. It wants us to have both the male and the female symbols healed. These symbols can be mom, dad, and sometimes other significant people in our childhood such as uncle, aunt, grandpa, grandma, etc. When we have both the male and female aspects of love healed, we can find balance and inner security much more easily based on what we experienced in childhood with these symbols. Our adult life will match the relationships and emotions with the male and female symbols throughout life. These symbols will show up in the form of friends, romantic partners, bosses and other interpersonal relationships. These can be perfectly fine, but if we do not like what we attract, we need to change our relationships with our past male-female symbolic perceptions. Next, I will help you discover your limiting beliefs you may have about love. Ask yourself what you think about love and if you believe that you are loved. You can also ask where in the past you became disconnected from love if you don't feel loved. I asked earlier in this chapter and throughout the book, don't analyze or challenge your answers. Also make sure you don't change them because you feel guilty or ashamed. Limiting beliefs will be slightly different for each person. There can be multiple limiting beliefs stacked on top of one another. They might sound very similar, but they are not the same. It is best to address each one individually. Use the techniques from Chapter 9 to heal this very important issue. You can also read the client session for ideas. Client session: I worked with a young soldier who came back from war and suffered from a very bad case of PTSD. We worked together for a few months. He also had the limiting belief that he was not loved. We used the regression time dynamics technique, which took about 75 minutes. That session changed his life. We began our session and I asked him the same question I shared with you in this chapter. Do you feel loved? He got very nervous and hesitated, and a few seconds later he answered, no, I do not. I asked him, when were you disconnected from love? He said it was before his birth, 2 generations ago. This answer came from his subconscious mind, imagination. There is no need to analyze it or question it. His mind took him back in time and showed him a story with a 14-year-old man in it. This young man was very sad as he watched his depressed uncle drinking excessive amounts of alcohol. When we ask our subconscious, it gives us the most appropriate metaphor to learn from and to heal our issue. I asked my client, who is this young man? Who is this 14-year-old? He said, that is my grandpa. What is his concern? I asked. My client said this young man is concerned because the man he's looking up to, his uncle, is not well. He believes that his uncle does not love him. We discovered through the regression that his uncle was sad because he felt unloved. He was drinking alcohol heavily to assuage his pain. I asked my client to explain to the 14-year-old that his uncle still loves him despite his pain. It was only the teenager's perception that his uncle did not love him. This took some time. In my regression sessions, I prefer to keep the client talking. This ensures that he stays with the story and does not wander off. He had some very interesting thoughts to share with the 14-year-old. He spoke from the heart. He shared his life experience with the 14-year-old and many things he learned along the way. Even this type of expressions and the things we say in regression contribute to the positive learnings. When he was done talking with the teenager and finished speaking with the uncle, I asked him to forgive them in that scene. After that, I asked him what additional learnings or higher messages he's receiving from the subconscious. He told me that he learned that everyone's human and everybody wants to be loved. He learned that it is easy to misperceive and misinterpret events and people. He learned to be less judgmental, more aware, and listen to people's words and interactions more deeply. He also learned that he is able to speak his truth with compassion and love without having to be afraid of someone getting upset with him and fearing to lose the person's love. Client feedback after his session and being reconnected to love. The gentleman I worked with on this issue was kind enough to share his observations and his experience a few weeks later after he transformed. He wrote me this and gave me permission to share his message. As I reconnected to love, I could feel energized and emotionally nourished from within, and feel like I have resources to help others. I feel like I'm open, and even if others act strangely, it will be okay. I'm willing to share my emotional depth and my personal truth from a place of love. When I speak from love, my words have a deep impact, and I think most people hear when I speak from that place. I would go so far as to say that the world shows up differently when I'm connected to love. Things are less scary and more meaningful. Knowing the feeling of being connected with love has made me very in tune to things that pull me in a different direction. For that reason, my emotional self-management has greatly improved. I'm starting to relate to the people in my life from a place of I've got your back and really seeing, hearing, and knowing people. Connecting to love has been a paradigm shift that has changed the way I feel, relate, and interpret the world. It has changed everything and continues to expand. Our biggest fear. I have asked many of my students and clients what their biggest fear is. Some said, being out on the street, to be broke, or to be alone. If we reach for the higher messages behind these answers, we eventually discover that it all comes down to wanting acceptance and love. These are many layers removed and far outside of conscious awareness. Deep down, every single one of us has this understanding. One day I was speaking with a lady and I dropped the comment that most humans' biggest fear is not being loved. She disagreed. I asked her what her biggest fear was. She said to die alone on a hospital bed. Okay, I said, would you please imagine that you are on that hospital bed, alone? What is one thing that is missing, which if you had, would take this fear away? She did not get it at first, so I smiled and repeated it. Would you please imagine that you are on that hospital bed, alone? What is one thing that is missing, which if you had, would take this fear away? She thought about for a moment and said, love. Then she immediately blushed and said, you tricked me. We both smiled. It was fun. Benefits you get when you do this work. When you see someone who is kind, projects confidence, smiles, and has strong and positive vibes, that person is very likely connected to love and has this issue healed. When we are connected to love, we become calmer, more charismatic, and magnetic. We have more resources to work with and are able to guide others with more confidence and compassion, without defensive behaviors, and without the need to exhibit non-stop power and control. We each came to this earth to do one thing, and even if we succeed at 100 other tasks, if this one thing is neglected, our life will be wasted. If this one thing is fulfilled, then whatever else happens, our life will be fulfilled. Some languages call this one thing love, and when love is present, the whole world turns into a temple. Rumi. Chapter 9, Techniques and Positive Learnings. There are many different techniques available to eliminate limiting beliefs. Some of the most commonly used ones are clinical hypnosis, regression, different techniques in neuro-linguistic programming, mindfulness, EFT, tapping. In this book, I will give you 2 techniques that I have personally used for years. They have proven to be very effective and changed thousands of lives around the globe. Disclaimer: some of our beliefs run very deeply and they may not be easy to recognize or understand. Whenever possible, seek professional help from a practitioner or a therapist who has experience with changing beliefs and knows how to make the change last for you. If you suffer from any form of mental disorder, do not attempt under any circumstance to do these exercises by yourself. You must see a qualified professional. As you read it in this book, the number one reason why we have problems in life is because we did not learn certain lessons. That is the main reason for repeated negative patterns and sabotage. That is why I put an enormous emphasis on learning. Once we teach the mind the proper lessons, our lives change for the better. There are a lot of techniques that remove negative beliefs but do not teach your subconscious mind. If you are familiar with such techniques, make sure you teach the mind positive lessons in addition to the technique. That is imperative. In each chapter I share lessons and important information that you can incorporate into your exercise. These techniques do not erase memories. They release negative emotional charges and limiting beliefs. Once we resolve our issues, our mind can find peace and stop presenting the old problems to us. After some sessions, you may feel a little tired and groggy, which can last from a few minutes to a few days. This is normal. It's a sign of a deep issue healing. Your mind is integrating changes in the learnings, which is creating a new life for you. Eat well, drink lots of water, and get as much rest as you can. Focus on what you want and practice gratitude often. The techniques I recommend to safely eliminate limiting beliefs. This is the technique section. You must be excited. This is going to create positive changes in your life. Before you begin, make sure you do the investigative work first and avoid the shotgun approach. This way you can maximize the benefits and achieve your ideal results. I recommend you learn the different steps in the technique before you apply it to yourself. Please take your time and learn it well. There is no rush. Read it, try it, do it. Most people learn best by doing. If you do it incorrectly at first, don't worry, you will not do any harm. You simply might have to do it again. After a few tries, you will know the techniques well. I will include some safety guards also and give you examples and explanations what the good practices are and what things to recognize and avoid. Use a paper and pen as much as possible to document your progress. Technique 1, Time Dynamics Trademark Sign Technique, a version of regression therapy with advanced steps. This following technique is one of the most effective techniques there is to eliminate full-time limiting beliefs. Full-time means the belief is present all the time. There are different approaches to regression and can be many additional techniques used while doing regression. Regression is an art, and it is much more than just going back in time and exploring past events. Some hypnotherapists use regression to childhood, regression to the womb, regression to our parents' past, and regression to a past life. Some people and cultures do not believe in past lives. There is no right or wrong. The subconscious mind always gives the best metaphorical message to bring us the necessary lessons. I ask that you suspend your disbelief and trust your subconscious mind to guide you. It always gives you an answer when you ask a question. Your conscious, logical mind, on the other hand, is designed to be protective. It is analytical, doubtful, and often defensive. In neurolinguistic programming there is an advanced technique called the Time Dynamics Trademark Sign Technique, which I teach to individuals and groups. The technique is incredibly effective and delivers results, when done correctly. I use this technique tens of thousands of times to apply it to myself and to also help many people around the globe. This technique brought me back to life. I will show you step by step how it works, so you can facilitate your own change and bring undeniable transformation into your life. For my personal coaching clients, I use a very advanced version of Time Dynamics Trademark Sign, which I have fine-tuned for years to cover many different situations. Initial step, you only have to do this once. When you answer the following questions below, you may feel like you are making things up. That doubt comes from the logical part of the mind, which gets in the way of discovering real answers. Use your imagination and let the analytical mind rest for a while. The subconscious mind has a much more superior logic than the daily logic we have been using. Trust your inner voice and think things out without barriers. Learn this skill 1. Ask your subconscious mind to help you point to the past. You might need to close your eyes, relax and wait for the answer. It could be behind you, to the left. Whatever your mind gives you is the perfect answer. Remember this answer. You can also make a drawing for yourself where these points are located in reference to you too. Ask your subconscious mind to point to the present. It could be in front of you, at the same place where you are, or next to you. Trust your intuitive answer. Remember this answer 3. Ask your subconscious mind to point to the future. Could be in front of you, could be to the right, etc. Remember this answer. The most typical answers are, the past is behind you, the present is where you are, and the future is ahead of you. The 3 dots form a straight line through the person starting from behind and pointing ahead. For some other people, the past is to the left, the present is in front of them and the future is to the right. The 3 dots form a line in front of the person as if they could see the events of their lives in a timely order. These indicate that different people relate and feel differently about time. Both are perfectly fine. If yours was similar to these, you are done. You can move to step 1. There is one exception that should be corrected. In case your mind told you your past was in front of you, that could present a challenge. Here is why. I mentioned before, our subconscious mind is symbolic in nature. If our past is literally in front of us, the moment we open our eyes, we cannot see beyond the past. When we move forward, we bump into it. This makes it difficult to create a foreseeable future and plan goals like this. So here is what you can do. This should be done once and you should be fine after that. You can close your eyes or keep them open, whichever works for you best. Grab the past with your left hand. It can be behind you, next to you, whatever your intuitive answer was. Do the same thing for the future and grab it with your right hand. It could be ahead of you, next to you, etc. Pull them apart gently as if this were rope. Straighten this rope out and rotate it until it feels good. The past typically feels best on the left or behind. Yours can be in between the two. This is an individual thing. When you found the position where it feels best for you, ask your mind to lock this position in. Some practitioners snap their fingers, which instructs the mind to lock in the new position. You can do the same thing. Locking in your time orientation keeps it from drifting. When you are done, double check to see where the past, present and future are located. They should be where you moved them. If they are, move to step 1. If not, move to where you want it and lock it in place until it stays. This position can be changed later. You can move this back and forth as you wish. Time dynamics trademark sign technique. Find a comfortable and preferable quiet spot where you can focus and feel safe. You can play some hypnotic trance or quiet meditation music to help you relax. If you are new to this, you should do this technique one step at a time and take notes as you go. Take notes on what you found and which steps you have already completed. Once you do this technique a few times, you will feel much more comfortable with it. It's possible to do this with their eyes open, but most close their eyes. See which one works better for you. Take your time, and stay focused as you move through the steps. Turn off your phone and make sure you have at least 30 minutes of uninterrupted time to do this. Some sessions take a minute, some take an hour. 1. Pick a limiting belief you want to eliminate. Write it down on the paper, so you can remember it better. 2. This step is a bonus step. See if you can do it. List all the possible benefits of the problem, your limiting belief. For most people this is a challenge at first, because they see a problem as just a problem. I said this in the book that our mind never does anything without considering some higher good and some higher positive intention. There is always a positive benefit in everything. Some possible answers are, if I did not have that problem, I may not have become so independent and strong. If I did not have that problem, I would have chosen a much more mundane life to live. If you come up with a good answer or two, great. If not, that's fun too. It can always come to you later. This step can help you work toward a state of gratitude as you discover, step by step, that whatever you perceived as bad had many benefits. We will use this benefit later in the technique. For example, I would not have been able to learn this in-depth knowledge of the human mind and be able to help others, if I did not have my fair share of pain and challenges. 3. Ask your subconscious mind when the root cause, some call this the first event or the actuating event, of your limiting belief happened. You can help the search by asking, was this first event before, during, or after my birth? Your mind will give you an answer. Trust it, it is always right, even if it doesn't make much sense. For this reason, you should not analyze the answer, or you might get the wrong results. In most cases, addressing the root cause event is sufficient. The limiting decision was made in that root cause event. Events after that with the same limiting belief and negative emotions are resolved as well. 4. Once you have the answer for the root cause, you can write it down or just simply remember it. 5. Ask your subconscious mind to take you back to the first event, to the root cause of your limiting belief. Remember, a limiting belief is a result of a limiting decision. Your mind will guide you back to the most appropriate time and space where the actuating event happened, where the limiting decision was made. Sometimes the answer and the pictures come lightning fast, sometimes you have to wait for a few moments, sometimes, you may not see much, you can only feel that this is the right spot. 6. Observe the old event from a distance. Make sure there are no emotions present. The closer we get to that event, the more our feelings become invested. That can influence our objectivity and learning. If you feel undesired emotions well up, float up higher or go back farther on the side, away from the scene, stay there for now. 7. Your mind gave you a story, a metaphor, with details in it. The event you're looking at could be a part of your past experience or could be something totally new to you. Don't analyze it now. You can always do that later. For now, trust the process and know that you can do this. Remember, our mind speaks to us in symbols and metaphors. Sometimes, people ask me if they were creating false memories. I tell them, these are not memories, only metaphors to learn from and heal our issues. Look for symbolic meanings in the positive moral of the story, never the negative. When we focus on the negative takeaways, we stay stuck. You might see things perfectly in full color, or it could be washed out and you see the outlines of characters. This position where we look at an old event from the outside back in time is called the learning position or the observer position. 8. Take a look at the event, understand the characters and see what you are doing. Most events are not very complex. Say it out loud if you can and say what you see and make an effort to discover details that can be important to resolve it in a positive manner. Sometimes we miss little things, which cause us to misperceive the meaning behind the events. There are moments where people we interacted with in the past are really messed up and have many wrong reasons to do what they do. To release and forgive old events, this regression technique is very helpful. At this step, ask yourself, what is the takeaway from the event? What is the positive lesson? Look at the list of possibilities I wrote at the end of this chapter. Read some of the session notes I shared. Take notes if you can. As you've read in previous chapters, the sessions were actually quite interesting. Approach your experience from the same perspective. Have fun with it and apply what you have learned. If the event you are working with is uncomfortable or exceeds your level of knowledge, practice the technique more or seek professional help. For serious trauma, there are additional steps to this technique. That takes a lot of training and practice. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions regarding that. 9. This step works to release and heal the limiting belief. Invite the adult you from the present moment to go back into the old event. Take your wisdom and speak to the people in the event. If they are not paying attention or doing stuff that is not helping the learning, pause the event, as you would do on your video player. They should not move or react to you. They should only hear you and accept what you have to say. Deliver your message to the people and others inside the event. Tell them how you feel, what you experienced, and how some behaviors they affected you. 10. Turn to the person who made the limiting decision. It can be a younger you, can be a parent, grandparent, or can be you in a past life. Depends on where your mind took you, where you are regressed. Talk to yourself in a kind and caring manner. Tell yourself what you have learned. You can explain to yourself that the decision made was a momentary perception and did not consider other aspects of the situation. Tell yourself also about the positive benefits you found in step 2. That will give the younger you a chance to release the shame that limiting beliefs typically come with. This also helps build gratitude. Then say few kind words to yourself. I love you, I respect you, and anything else you wish to say. You will start feeling better and find peace with the situation. 11. When you're done, float above the event one last time and see if there are any new intuitive messages that come to mind. The messages should be positive. See some of the pointers again if you need to. The more you work with your mind, the easier it becomes to see the learning and not so much the negative. 12. This is called the release position. In this position, your mind will completely release the negative emotions and the limiting belief. Most standard regression work does not include this step. If you skip it, the technique will still work, but it might not be as beneficial. Using your imagination, go back in time before the event happened. You should be facing the future and the old event, which did not happen yet in this position. Spend a few moments here and find peace. Stay floating or on the side, away from the timeline, and ask your mind, does that old event feel resolved? Are the negative emotions gone? If the answer is yes, you are almost done. If residual negative emotions persist, go back to step 7, observer position, and see if some details were missed. If your mind tells you need to go further back in time, go back in time where there is more information for you to learn. You will find a new metaphor and a new opportunity to learn from. 13. If the old event was resolved, go back down into the event one last time and see if it feels resolved. If it does, float above the event and slowly come back towards the future. It is very possible for you to see several old events replay themselves differently as a result of your session. 14. When you are back at the present time, float down into the room, into your body, and open your eyes. 15. You can look around, reflect on your experience, and be grateful to yourself for doing the work. Spend a minute or two here before you complete the session. The last step, future pacing. Every time you use a technique to eliminate a limiting belief, make sure you take this final step. Close your eyes, go out to the future, and create 3 different events. One could be 6 months from now, the next one could be 1 year from now, and the third one could be 5 years from now. Fully imagine your positive future without the old limiting belief. See through your own eyes. Imagine how you would like to feel. This is the part where you program your mind for future success and action without the old sabotaging belief getting in the way. Do the same visualization technique at all 3 future times. Take as long as you want to. When you are finished, come back to the present moment and open your eyes. You are done. You can use the visualization technique as often as you want in meditation and self-hypnosis. While you future pace yourself, your mind may also tell you some other things it wants you to clear. Take a note of those and address them as necessary. Empty chair technique. The empty chair therapy is a very beneficial and safe approach for resolving internal conflicts and for eliminating limiting beliefs. Psychologists use this technique more often than hypnotherapists or practitioners do. It is primarily used for internal conflict resolution and Gestalt therapy. I use this technique in my practice for certain conflicts and beliefs only, depending on how the client is able to visualize and follow suggestions in hypnotic trance. This technique can help speak gold unspoken words and unexpressed feelings, and it integrates internal conflicts and negative emotions caused by negative beliefs. When we have limiting beliefs such as I am not loved, I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I'm alone, some of these beliefs will feel incongruent. It doesn't quite seem on target, or it doesn't quite resonate with you. Some people might say, well, yes, and no. So, if there's any kind of hesitation as to their presence of your limiting beliefs, please note that such incongruent limiting beliefs suggest a part-time problem. Because it is incongruent, part-time, or we are not sure, our tendency is to ignore it. Big mistake. If you know other parts integration techniques, feel free to use them and make sure you teach the mind as you go. Teaching the mind the positive messages needs to be the main focus with all techniques. These part-time problems can be deceiving and misleading, because they can be less obvious and visible than full-time problems. Description: empty chair technique. This is very simple and painless. It almost seems a little bit silly, but the technique is phenomenal. When I ask my clients to do this on their own, they often come back a couple of months later and say, "Robert, my life has changed. I am free from the old negative emotions and patterns. I know it works. I have resolved many of my own problems this way." Find 2 empty chairs. Dedicate 1 chair to a limiting belief. Let's call chair number 1, I am not good enough. Dedicate chair number 2, I am good enough. Find some times in your past when you did something great, you accomplished something that you're proud of. In some cases, especially for people who were repeatedly traumatized throughout their life, it might be difficult to list positive accomplishments. There were probably plenty, but their mind is blocking access to those moments, because they have accumulated disempowering beliefs and negative emotions. For those folks, the professional help is highly recommended. A professional can help initiate the change and shift your perception one step at a time to move into a good life. Next step, sit down on the first chair, which is the limiting belief. In this example, I am not good enough. Take a deep breath and try to fully embody the persona that the limiting belief created. Once you have it, start talking to the empty chair and openly express your initial views, concerns, and observations. It may sound like this: every time I do something, it backfires and I am tired of trying. I feel like when I do anything, it just goes wrong. No matter what I do is just not good enough. I am not good enough for anything. Then switch chairs and sit down in the other chair, which you designated for your positive accomplishments and when you felt that you were good enough. Take a few moments, embody that belief in the persona and talk back to the first negative belief chair. The conversation can go like this: well, look, you have done so many things and you succeeded many times, but you are not willing to see it. You are good enough. What are you talking about? Switch back to the first chair, and start talking to the second chair. Express your views, your response. Switch to the second chair and continue to express the opposing views and truths from each angle. You might switch 10, 15, or maybe only 5 times. This is a unique and individual experience, and it is up to your creativity and the depth of the problem. Eventually, you will run out of things to say. You will find peace and the 2 conflicting parts have reached an agreement. They now understand each other's messages and they are able to use their energy and resources to help you work toward your goal without the conflict and the limitation. The two old conflicting parts that were pulling you to one or the other direction will work together to help you achieve your goals and desires. They are no longer separate, they are one. This combined power is going to help you get to the next level in life. Once your session is over, take a couple minutes to reflect on what you learned, and what you can take away from it. Give yourself a break and approach this as a wow moment. Stay kind to yourself and stay humble. Approach the new limitless possibility with excitement and gratitude. The last step, future pacing. Every time you use a technique to eliminate a limiting belief, make sure you take this final step. Close your eyes, go out to the future, and create 3 different events. One could be 6 months from now, the next one could be 1 year from now, and the third one could be 5 years from now. Fully imagine your positive future without the old limiting belief. See through your own eyes. Imagine how you would like to feel. This is the part where you program your mind for future success and action without the old sabotaging belief getting in the way. Do the same visualization technique at all 3 future times. Take as long as you want to. When you are finished, come back to the present moment and open your eyes. You are done. You can use the visualization technique as often as you want in meditation and self-hypnosis. While you future pace yourself, your mind may also tell you some other things it wants you to clear. Take a note of those and address them as necessary. What happens next? The moment the technique was finished and you created the positive images with positive feelings, your mind started to integrate the changes. If you are familiar with the subtleties of the law of attraction, you understand that it is not enough to visualize. You must feel it. The feelings are what create the attraction and what we bring more about. Dare to feel excited about your goals and dreams. Work on your self-esteem to be able to manage and sustain them when they arrive. Chapter 5 shares many secrets about a lasting self-esteem. The integration process can take up to several weeks. Your job is to be aware of what you want. Make sure that if old patterns pop up, you notice how you feel much better about them. You might also notice that you don't get triggered as much, if at all. You should learn to act more and more out of kindness and self-awareness, rather than fear and judgment. Observe life's events as tests. What's the message? What's the learning in those? Get good at this. Take action toward your goals. After you removed a limiting belief, you can use positive affirmations to help you that way. They can help you focus on what you want. As you may know, affirmations are okay, but they work best when they do not oppose a conflict or a limiting belief. Sometimes those conflicts have enough power to dwarf the effects of the positive affirmations. Try to do the belief work first and continue with the affirmation next. See what works for you. You can also see Chapter 6 for more details on affirmations, what learnings are and why they are important. You already understand that in order to experience a good life, we must resolve our old negative emotions and limiting beliefs from the past. If left unresolved, they are going to show up in our lives over and over again. They will transcend into our career, romantic relationship, and eventually our health. In the process of releasing the old limiting beliefs and negative emotions, we also must learn why it happened at the first place. That is important, so we can avoid making the same mistake again in the future. If we understand why things happen, we will be able to make good decisions and we will be able to notice when something is off. However, instead of reacting to it negatively, we will be able to recognize it and act from a place of choice, instead of a place of destructive pattern or defensive instinct. Recommended points to consider and apply to our lives at any given moment. A limiting decision may have seemed appropriate in the moment when we made it, but likely we lacked information to make a better decision. We can always make new and better decisions. No matter how bad things look, things can be changed and life can improve in profound ways. Do not self-blame or blame others. This is the most dangerous thing we can do. The blaming part creates the victim mindset, which reinforces negative emotions and limiting beliefs that will continue to keep us stuck. As one of my mentors said, nothing is ever our fault, but we must take responsibility for our life to change it. We could have been at the wrong place at the wrong time, but that needs to be worked through and resolved to interrupt and stop undesired patterns. Only we can change that. It is our mind and we are in charge of it. State things in the positive. Negative language reinforces negative emotions and limiting beliefs. See examples in Chapter 5 for negated language. Avoid using don't, shouldn't, wouldn't, can't. Say it the way you want it and not how you don't want it. Create possibilities in your mind and shred your doubts. A doubt can be viewed as a limiting belief. Forgive others and forgive yourself. You can face yourself while you are regressed back in time and say to yourself, I forgive you and I love you. This is very powerful and makes a big difference in your life. You can do this self-forgiveness at many places in your past as you are resolving old events presented to you by your mind. Look at missed details. In retrospect, you might find that sometimes when others acted or behaved strangely, they had fears they were trying to mask. They may have lacked vital resources to have good judgment. The place they came from may have been much worse than your situation. This does not justify any negative act or behavior, but it can help you understand and forgive more easily. Remember, we are not our behaviors. Whether you know it or not, everybody does the best they can with the resources available to them. Some people don't have much to work with. Most people are disconnected from love. They desperately seek acceptance and peace, but they don't have the tools or the knowledge to overcome their challenges. Their actions and behaviors reflect their exhausting search. You might find that some people are not ready for change. They have deep fears keeping them from moving forward. Your job is to be the change and be a positive example as you do this work. Become an inspiration to others and show them what is possible. Throughout the book and each chapter, I shared several pearls of wisdom. Feel free to incorporate these into the techniques and into your life and as part of the higher learnings and mind teachings. By the nature of our mind, we are limitless. The only limitations we have are the physical body and our limiting beliefs. Any other limitations and limiting beliefs are signs of distorted perceptions. Our job as humans is to discover and master this limitlessness with compassion and love. Chapter 10 Conclusion. The biggest obstacle for most people. One thing is certain, we have incredible gifts and abilities, but our limiting thoughts and beliefs hold many of us back from achieving a life we desire. To change our external circumstances successfully, we need to change our beliefs in ourselves first. The outside world will be a direct reflection of how we feel and what we believe. In the beginning, this may be confusing because it's counterintuitive. The importance of this work. The information I presented in this book comprises of my own journey, years of research, and the transformational work of hundreds of clients. I have permission to share their stories and they were excited to contribute and help others this way. I also made sure I applied everything to myself first to know how it feels and what it does. So, I only shared the concepts and ideas I practice myself and which gave me undeniable and positive results. Certain limiting beliefs I talked about may not be immediately obvious or they may not apply to you. Even then, it is good to know about them because it will increase your ability to understand your surroundings. Some of you may only need to shift a few perceptions to get to your goals. Others will have to dig deeper and resolve more internal conflicts to create an ideal life. At first, this task may seem daunting, but it is entirely possible. As you gradually learn this information and complete the exercises, you'll be able to build an increasingly strong foundation that can support a happy life of your choosing. Take out the trash. When we have negative self-talk and destructive beliefs, we cannot see what is possible. These impossibilities seep into work, our romantic life and eventually other areas. We experience life from a place of doubt, fear, and scarcity. If we don't address our limiting beliefs, we will miss out on life. This is true for all of us, no matter how educated or skillful we are. When we live in a place that has trash all over, it is difficult to use our space and enjoy it. The first step is to clean up and take out the trash. Our mind operates on the same principle. Too much garbage and baggage will occupy space in our head, limiting good things and success from coming and staying. Happiness. Until we resolve of our limiting thoughts, our mind will give us negative emotions and make us behave in ways that are hard to understand. We will blindly do many things for love, for acceptance, and we act out of fear. But, what if we switched things around? What if we acted out of love, out of acceptance, and did things in spite of fear? Wouldn't that be a much happier life? I am sure you know the answer. There are times where the importance of this work is made clear. There was one client in particular who wrote me an email. It was only 2 sentences, but it brought me to tears. He wrote, I was just sitting at a traffic light and started bawling, just crying so hard because, for the first time I can remember, I felt like I will be really, truly happy. This is something that's available to all of us. Happiness is in us. We just need to take off the hard layers that keep it blocked inside. The very purpose of our life is happiness. which is sustained by hope. Hope means keeping going, thinking, I can do this. It brings inner strength, self-confidence, and the ability to do what you do honestly, truthfully and transparently. Dalai Lama.